Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Get in Tune. I am Michael Gracia, and I have a wonderful show planned for you. I'm actually having one of my favorite artists on tonight, and he's his second time appearing, and we will be chatting in a few minutes. But before I do bring him on, let me do the usual spiel. As you guys know, right there at the Wiz Comic every Wednesday on Instagram and Facebook. And now, uh, 7 times this year, in A Kid in a Comic, the newspaper full of comics. Got a lot of great stuff in here. A few friends of mine are in here. People who've been on this show. Tim Jones, who does Sour Grapes, J.M. DeSantis of Chadiana and other great stuff. Mark McKenna, who's been on the show, he's got stuff in here. Um, you know, Austin Huff, who was on last week of Powers Comics, he's got stuff in here. We got a lot of great stuff. This is a great magazine. Just go to or newspaper. Just go to A Kid in a Comic and .com, and you can check that out. They also have Facebook and Instagram pages. Also, don't forget, always available, The Whimsical Wiz, the complete 2023 collection, up on Amazon right now. And for you swashbuckling fans, the 2 Zorro books I got to work on and illustrate for Bold Venture Press. I have 2 stories. Whoops, always do this backwards. Which hand? Okay, so this is the new one, Swordplay and Romance. Just came out this July, and this is from a year or so ago. Zorro's Exploits. I have 2 in here, 1 in here. Really fun stuff. I'm a huge Zorro fan, as you guys know. And this is a couple of years old for Bold Venture Press as well, actually a year old. Pulp Adventures, I illustrated 1 story in here. But this is a great book full of a bunch of different pulp stuff. When was it Teal James Glenn was on? He's one of the writers in here. He's in the Zorro books. Fantastic guy, fantastic writer. I didn't illustrate his stuff, but one day I hope to bring one of his stories to life. So now let's bring on my guest. I think everyone knows his name in the industry. He's a talented illustrator, talented painter. He has had a long career. And he's also a teacher, which is great because I teach as well, or used to do it a little more full time. But let's bring on the great Ray Lago. Hey Ray, how you doing?
Well, that's very kind. Occasionally, someone uses the word "great" in front of me, and I'm like, they must be having me confused with somebody else.
Oh no, totally is. Listen, the when I saw you last at Undiscovered Realm Con, that was in White Plains. You let me pick a print off your table, and I took one of your angel prints that you had, and I was planning to put it up in my studio here, but my wife actually loved it so much it's in our living room now. So
that's very nice. It passed a certain test.
Yeah.
Wow.
Usually I buy stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's high praise.
Yeah, no, it's great. She really likes it a lot too. So yeah, first of all, thank you for that. But secondly, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. I always enjoy talking with you. And like I said, I am a big fan. You're one of my favorite artists. I think I told you this last time you were on, and I wish I had the piece, but I started collecting some of your work in the 90s at comic book conventions. And I remember my favorite piece I had up for years was a Spider-Man piece you did. I believe it was maybe it was for a card or something, and it was I just remember like the golden background of the city that he was the reflection of him in there. That was one of my all-time favorite pieces that you did outside of the angel work that you do.
That was one of my favorite pieces. I remember doing it. I don't think I told you this, but if it's a piece that I think it is, I was at the Reuben Awards in Pasadena, I think, and we were at some resort and where they were holding it, and Scott Adams was pretty much slated to win the Reuben that year. It was his big year, and even though there was a lot of contention about him as a cartoonist, but there was no contention about how successful and how much attention he brought to the field, so he was going to win. And but I had work. I always had work when I went away to conventions or at whatever, of any kind, including the Rubin Awards. And I was there because my wife was a comic strip editor, Charles Schultz's editor at the time,
Yeah.
at the United Feature Syndicate, and she would let people know that I was busy working in the hotel. So when I went over to congratulate Scott that evening, after they do the whole war thing, and everyone's well dressed, he's dressed great, and I shake his hand, congratulations, Scott, you deserve this. And he goes, aren't you busy painting Spider-Man up in the room? That's his response to me. Not like, thanks, Ray, I really appreciate it. It's like, aren't you supposed to be busy painting Spider-Man? So and it was that piece I was working on, actually.
Yeah.
So.
That was great piece. Was that for a card set? I forget.
Yeah, it was for a card set. It was Spider-Man Premium or something like that. Probably 96. Those 90s were just unbelievable. Not that any work that you get anytime is welcome, it's fun. But the 90s were like, that was a time where, God, I just had to turn down work all the time because there was just so much coming in. And let's be honest, my marriage would have ended a lot sooner if I'd taken on as much work as I wanted to take on, which was everything. Like, I wanted to say yes to everything, and it was just impossible. I still remember getting okay, what was it? DC Comics called me for a second Villains trading card set. They had done the first Villains trading card set, which did pretty well, so they were doing number 2. And they offered me, I forget how many cards, I think it was like 7 cards or something. And I actually told the editor, God, I don't think I can do it. I was so busy. So I said, no, I'm really sorry. I really appreciate it. So I hung up with the person, and I was sitting there thinking, damn it, you can do it. You can do it. So I called him up and I said, I take it back. Give it to me. I can get him done. I can get him done. I hate turning this down. I'm going to do it. So I said yes. And a week later, and they were doing about 3 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever it was. A week later, I get a call from Clear with a 9-card single giant image. Like it would be like a giant poster for their Versus set, DC versus Marvel.
Okay.
And I couldn't take it because I had just accepted these 7 cards.
Yeah.
And it was going to be one giant amazing painting with all these characters. It was going to be one single painting, one giant painting. It would have been the most money I ever made on one single painting. We're talking crazy numbers, because they were going to pay me for 9 cards in one shot.
Yeah.
I keep saying one of the things I noticed about listening to our discussion last time is I say way too often.
So okay.
My students haven't complained, but I got to stop it. But there I go again. I had to say no. I went to Boris and Julie Bell, but between the two of them, knocked it out beautifully too. But it's one of those pieces I kind of regret. But I did get the DC stuff done. It didn't go to press because the orders were too low, and that was right around the time that the whole thing kind of crashed.
Yeah.
The trading card boom kind of came to an end. They canceled the Villains 2 set. They paid me, so that was fine. But they're unpublished works. A couple got published in a Rogues gallery that they published with great Tom Taggart cover of Darkseid. And 2 of my pieces were inside. I think Blaze and the Mentor, some demon character that deals with the Spectre. So, but that's it. 2 soft print in that, and the others didn't. So, but how can you predict these things?
You don't own that work personally. It's the DC's property. Or?
Yeah. Well, as intellectual property, yes.
Yes.
Of course, I had the originals, which of course I sold.
Yeah. That's what I meant. Like, did you get a chance to turn around and sell the?
I sold them, but they weren't as desirable because they weren't published.
Yeah.
In fact, by the time those 2 pieces were published in that pinup book, I already sold the 2 pieces. I was always selling art to pay rent.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the stuff just gets scrolled away in a closet somewhere. Now, some of them would have gone up in value, not those per se. Some of the others have gone up in value. Not like the Magic card stuff, though. The Magic card stuff has really gone up in value, which was such a surprise because it was reversed. Magic card art at the time, when I was doing it, no one was buying the paintings. No one was interested in the original. The original art market for Magic was almost non-existent. So I sold them very inexpensively. Those I wish I'd held on to.
Yeah, but when you were doing Magic, that was you did like like series, what, like 3 or 4? You weren't in the you were in the beginning, but
Yeah,
not
no, not the
right,
beginning.
not at the right beginning.
I'm definitely still considered an oldster, but not at the beginning.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was really the mid to late '90s, early 2000.
Okay, so
Yeah.
little later then.
Well, I think it was Urza's Legacy or Urza's Saga. One of those. It was the first set, and
I'll have to
then it's
go
like
ahead.
Mercadian Masks, Apocalypse. What are the other names? It's hard for me to remember them. Later on, the Unhinged set, that was one of the last ones I was involved with. Um, oh, I can't think of all their names. It was like I only did around like 24, 25 of those cards,
Hmm.
but they're all
Yeah.
scattered because I did like 1 for this one, 2 for that one, 3 for this one, 5 for that one. I never did a huge number, and not in every set, obviously. But they were fun. I got into this before with you that I didn't really play the games, so I didn't have any attachment to those worlds, unlike
Mhm.
the attachment I have to like the Marvel and DC, worlds.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, because when I was young, I never played Magic either, but I collected the cards because I'm a big fan of fantasy art. So when I saw those cards, I might somewhere still have. I might have some of your cards somewhere packed away that I haven't looked at in years. I even still kind of buy them too. I know a few of the artists that work on Magic, and you know they tell me about some stuff. And I mean, everything's basically digital these days. You don't work that way, right?
No,
Or
no, but there
yeah,
are still traditional people
yeah, but
in
not
that.
a lot doing that. It's rare to be doing traditional.
Well, if you want to see the originals, the ones who are still working originally, just go to the Magic the Gathering, Magic the Gathering, it's called Marketplace.
Okay.
They here on a Facebook page. Uh, they um, they sell originals there all the time, and as soon as a new set comes out, those who work original, are often selling them at auction on that page.
Well, I'll have to check
So
that out. I didn't know
there
that
still
existed.
are. I mean, I'd say the majority may be digital, but there's a sizable chunk because thanks to the collectors, there's an actual market for the originals.
Yeah.
I think that's the main. Well, I'm not saying it's the main reason. I guess it's such a personal choice. I think
Mhm.
any older artists, more from my generation, are probably still working traditional, but there's young people doing traditional stuff, and I think a lot of it is because they know because the pay is okay for a Magic card, but it's not phenomenal pay. It's not like what you get for a paperback book cover. We discussed
Yeah.
this a little bit last time. Not so much the money, but how much work some of the people put into these things way back when there wasn't much of a marketplace for the originals. And I would marvel at like, oh my God, how much are they putting all this work in? But then I realized this is what they wanted to do, and these became good samples for them to do other work for like companies like White Wolf and other, and even for paperback book publishers.
Yeah.
Um, because of the subject matter, the fantasy subject matter. I was entrenched more in superhero stuff, so for me it was more like another thing that I used this term last time. I dabbled in,
Hmm.
it was good work. I enjoyed it. It was fun, but again, I didn't have the attachment, and I didn't really think about using it as a channel or conduit into something else. I just didn't think. Well, I couldn't even imagine putting in the extra time to take a piece of art that was going to be printed the size of a priority mail stamp and do a large piece that could, let's say, be a wraparound cover almost, as a sample for my portfolio.
Yeah.
Portfolio, schmortfolio, I was doing work, I was like
Yeah.
not,
No.
because I did reach out, to one art director that I knew who published a lot of books. And basically, my work was mostly superheroes. They would need to see more fantasy stuff, but it would have to be, again, book quality, not trading card quality. You
Yeah.
do it like as if it's going to be printed as a poster. You put in a lot of detail and finish into them. And I wasn't doing that much work on these cards. That said, I would love to do some work for Magic. I don't think it's going to happen. I've reached out a few times. It's possible one of these days I'll get an email or something because I've mentioned it to certain people. Could happen, but hasn't happened yet. But I
Yeah.
would welcome a chance to revisit one of their worlds. Absolutely.
Now, just since we're on the topic of Magic, obviously you're a fan of comics, but was fantasy another interest, or was that just something you wanted to explore when you were offered the work? You know what I
No,
mean?
fantasy was always an interest of me. I used to love. I mentioned again in our last conversation,
Mhm.
the 4:30 movie on Channel 7 would have like, let's say Hercules week, or
Mhm.
it'll be the Clash of the Titans, it'll be Samson, there'll be a lot of Greek mythology,
Mhm.
so that kind of fantasy I was into. Tolkien mythology, and I mentioned this in our last interview. I had read The Hobbit, but I was put off by how thick the next books were. They were like ridiculously thick, and I thought, oh my god, because I remembered, and I mentioned this in the last interview, that The Hobbit would, it was, I mean, beautifully written, but it would sort of, I don't know, like drift off into descriptions of different sites and places, the ruins of a castle, all of a sudden several pages by what happened at that castle, which relate to the history of Middle Earth. But I'm thinking, where are we going with this? Isn't there a story? Are we following
Yeah.
a linear story?
Mhm.
So I saw the thickness of some of the other Lord of the Rings books, and I thought, I don't think so. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, I never got a chance to read them myself. As it's actually funny, I'm a big Tolkien fan, and I had a reading problem growing up, so a book like that was very intimidating to me. I eventually did read The Hobbit as I got older, but I never, kind of for the same reason, but also Tolkien, like you said, he goes off on these kind of tangents in his story.
yeah,
He's a very like dense writer.
yeah.
So I've
He was a
actually,
world builder. He was a
yeah,
real an early world builder.
yeah,
That's what he was doing. Amazing.
yeah. I actually eventually listened to them as audiobooks.
See, now that's probably what I should do because I
Mhm.
still haven't read them. I enjoyed the movies immensely. I know they're
Yeah,
adaptations and there's differences, but I
mhm.
love the movies. They're
Yeah.
absolutely, my God, what an experience that was seeing every one of those movies. Just an amazing accomplishment. Whole thing was great. Yeah, I should probably get them, recordings of them and play them.
You could find them, I believe, on YouTube. To be honest, for
Okay.
free. It's like 13 hours for one book or something,
I
but
believe it.
it's I and there's one what's his name, the one who played Gollum, Andy Serkis
Yeah,
is
he's
his name.
great.
He narrate he does the reading to, like, you
Really?
could find that on YouTube
Wow.
somewhere.
That'd be a
So
treat. That would
yeah,
be a
yeah.
treat.
So that was one I listened to
Now, years
about
back, I listened to with some studio mates, listened to certain like Star Trek novels,
Mhm.
and one of them was narrated by George Takei.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
and when he was voicing like Spock, he tried to sound like Spock. When he voiced Kirk, he tried to sound a little like Kirk. It was great. It was terrific. Yeah,
That's
so
hysterical.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, I'll have to look for those
Probably on
on
YouTube. Yeah,
YouTube. You
yes.
know, everything's there these days.
Before we rented it from the local library. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I
we-
actually last year I actually signed up again for a library card because I wanted to
uh,
get more stuff that I haven't had one in. I've been living where I live now since 2008. I have not had a library card even a good 10 years before that, you know? So I got one, and I've used their video services, like their online video, but I haven't had a chance to go like look for books to read in the library or anything yet.
I
But
think
yeah, no,
the 90s, probably the mid late 90s, I had because my studio was in Manhattan,
mhm.
I had a New York Public Library card, but I don't know what happened to that. I'm sure by now they don't use those things. That was an awful long time ago, but I
Yeah,
did go there looking for reference. The internet didn't exist. When I needed reference for things, I went there.
yeah, yeah. That's what I did when I was learning and doing all that stuff. That's great. Um, so let me ask you about, because I know we got a really interesting topic in a bit to talk about, um, that I mentioned in the beginning about a book you're working on. But before we get into that, for the audience who may have not seen the first one or may not be too familiar with who you are, we've already kind of gone into a bit of in depth of what you've done. You've worked on Magic, you've worked on superhero stuff, both for Marvel, DC, and comics is really your I guess your wheelhouse of characters to go
Yeah,
to, your go to. Um, just curious, and it also helped remind me what were some of, and it doesn't have to be comics, but who were some of your artistic influences,
uh,
that,
uh,
and because like, listen, I mean, your work is gorgeous. um like I said, I've been a fan for years, and one of the things that I enjoy talking about with other artists are who were their influences. I could always rattle off mine, but mine aren't important right now. It's about you here. So I'm curious about who you look at to inspire yourself.
Well, when I was a kid, I was copying from everything. I mean, I copied Charles Schultz's comic strips. I copied Don Heck and John Buscema and Steve Ditko and whoever, depending on the comic book that I owned, I
Mhm.
copied it, tried to, emulate it. George Tuska, Gil Kane. Neil was intimidating when his work first came out. When Neil Adams first came out, it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
so raw and realistic that I actually didn't really like it initially, because
Mhm.
you would have figures like falling toward you, and like it was just something very abrasive about it sometimes. And he actually remember telling him that or either I read an interview or he told me that he was sometimes trying to irritate the eye by some of the stuff he was doing. Like
Really, I wasn't
literally
aware.
wanted you to feel uncomfortable.
Mhm.
He was going for fairly raw realism. Um, but he admired guys like Gil Kane, and of course he was influenced by people like Stan Drake and others like that. Um, I started off copying guys like that, even Jack Kirby a little,
Mhm.
though he was more stylized, high impact, but more stylized.
Mhm.
But this is just me being a kid, I'm
Yeah.
literally a kid, grammar school. But I would be ambitious. I remember one time, I probably an oak tag paper or some, who knows what I was drawing on. I copied the cover in pencil of Avengers Annual #1,
Okay.
which, if you have any recollection of it, is like a group of the Avengers. I think Hercules is in it. I mean, all kinds of. It was. You look at this, and go, oh my god, what are you trying to do? But I was just copying something. I happened to have the issue. I thought it was amazing, and I
Yeah.
just copied the cover. So that's Marvel's big influence. DC a little less, but I mean, I copied some Kurt Swan drawings
Mhm.
and another artist like that at DC, because I collected um, a Legion of Superheroes. I collected Teen Titans. There are a few DC titles I collected. Hawk and Dove, The Creeper, both short,
Mhm.
little titles. Um, I used to buy the occasional Justice Society of America appearances in the Justice League and occasional Justice League.
Mhm.
Um, so I mean, I'll copy occasionally, but again, this is all pre actually deciding to study art. When I started to study art was in college, and at that point, I did become aware of, let's say, TV guide covers, paperback book covers, and I started, seeing names like Jim Sharp and Bob Peak and Bart Forbes and even Bert Silverman, whose work I wound up studying with him for a while later on. I studied painting with him many years later. Um, I wasn't trying to draw exactly like someone, although I copied a lot of people. And when I did my in college, I did some comic strips for the college paper. I know I
Mhm.
swiped left and right. Any sample of comics that I had, I can kind of copy a pose from, and then change it so it looked like it didn't belong the story that I
Yeah.
was doing. I stole freely, um, but it wasn't. I never developed a complete like sort of style out of my head kind of style. Other artists I like were like, Nick Cardy, I loved, though he was harder to copy because he was just like this natural drawer. In a different way, so was Gene Colan. And they're
Mhm.
actually quite intimidating because it just seemed like to put the pencil and they just went.
Yeah.
While guys like Buscema and both Buscemas were repetitive enough in their approach that you could see, and Gil Kane, that you can kind of see where it's formulaic. With
Mhm.
guys like Colan, it was really like, oh, wow, it's just amazing. It's so organic, it's so loose. Um, but I was impressed by all of it. In college, of course, I got exposed to some other stuff. And without the internet, it's amazing what I got exposed to because there was no internet. And yet somehow at one point I heard of Alphonse Mucha and looked at that work. And the pre-Raphaelites and all that was mostly through interviews with Barry Smith and Jeff Jones and all that appeared in various publications and books. And that got me looking at that kind of work, which was very hard to find initially. And then later on, there's an explosion of that sort of romantic art everywhere. And it's easy to find now. But at the time, it was kind of difficult, going to my library, getting access to their, art book section, which they didn't lend out, in order to look at the work of Burne Jones. I don't know. It was really discovering Waterhouse basically through Jeff Jones, and other artists like that. Ahmet Tadema and Godwin and those. Um, and again, they didn't influence my drawing style, but they definitely it was like a permission to paint or draw romantically, like to have an aesthetic that was, attractive to look at.
Yeah.
So it helped. It influenced my leanings, and guys like Neil eventually also, Bernie Wrightson, Michael Kaluta, Jeff Jones, Barry Smith. All those amazing artists became a humongous fan when that studio book came out, published of their work. Wow, what an amazing. I wasn't surprised. I knew that I was surprised about the book. I wasn't surprised that it was through together because I stumbled upon that one time while I was in college. Um, we were asked as an assignment in an illustration class to make a presentation on one of our favorite artists. So using just dialing zero for the operator and the phone information system, I wound up getting Frank Frazzetta's number. I didn't want to talk to Frank Frazetta for many, many years when I met him as a grown man working in the industry. But I wanted to talk to his wife on the phone. And she gave me some good advice. It was a very nice conversation. But I was able to ask her the questions she answered, and I made a presentation with a book and some posters and stuff that I had in class. One of my classmates wanted to contact Barry Smith. He loved Barry Smith's work. So I said, well, let's call New York, information. And we got a number. And the phone rang and the voice picked up. It wasn't Barry Smith, it was Michael Kaluta. And he basically said, "Oh, we share a studio." And he mentioned that he and Jones and Wrightson and Smith. And I was like, "What? Oh my God!" So he gave a PO box address. My friend Alan sent something. I don't think he got a response, but So he wound up. I don't know what he wound up doing. But I don't remember that much. But I was amazed about that, and it kind of inspired the idea for me and my friends to share artist studios together. It just kind of inspired us, which we did, and I continued to do for many years afterwards. Having rental spaces with other artists for the camaraderie, for the sort of psychic support of being around other artists.
Yeah.
And when that book was coming out, was actually we had just taken our first studio together while we were in college. I don't know where we got the money. It wasn't a lot of money, but we were so broke. But that book was advertised in Sal Q and probably early Bud Plant. I think I got mine from Sal Q initially. But it's just such an amazing book, still an inspirational book. Just, what a great book. That book it's still jaw-dropping, the talent, the achievement, the independence that these guys had. Basically, all of them was sort of, not that they were done doing commercial work ever, but they decided to branch out and publish their own stuff in one form or another, prints and portfolios, an occasional job. And there was, I could do nothing but admire them long before I met any of them. Very inspiring stuff. The Frazetta books were inspiring, Rockwell's inspiring, but there's something about that studio book that just still to this day, I look through it and I'm not glossing over whatever it was actually like for these four guys that share a studio together. I'm sure it was just like me and my friends, but it's still an amazing thing to see the work that was being produced at the time. I mean, Wrightson was working on his Frankenstein portfolio. Kaluta had begun Metropolis. But they were doing their own prints with all those amazing paintings and drawings. And Barry Smith was doing Gorblani Press, and Jones, of course, was just being Jones.
Yeah.
And just doing these just amazing paperback paintings and doing his personal work, and some prints also. So it was just amazing stuff. And so that stuff all of it's influenced me a lot. Bert Silverman, who I studied with, influenced me quite a bit by teaching me, about paint, basically. For example, by painting over my work, just destroying what I did and telling me, okay, now fix it, which is amazing when someone does that. Just, picks up a brush, gets some paint and just goes over what you just did, like it's gone. And so he said, okay, go back into it again. Give that time to dry, then go back into it more carefully. And I'm looking at oh. And it's been probably an hour and a half, 2 hours getting it to that stage, and then he just obliterates it. But you learn. And seeing him paint taught me a lot, just seeing him paint.
Mm-hmm.
So, this all, and then there's various people who inspire. One of my favorite teachers, two teachers from Kane University were Joe Jockinowitz, who passed away a bunch of years ago, and Carl Berger, who I think he might still be alive. I'm not sure. And in different ways, they were both inspirational artists by their work and by the way they taught. You know, so there's tons of inspiration. No, there's like no one go-to person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If there was, I'd probably have a more definitive style of drawing. If there
Mhm.
was one person that I emulated like over and over and over again, instead of
Yeah.
just trying to pick up little things from a lot of different people.
No, no, that's interesting, and it's fascinating. All the names you were just able to, off top of the head. I mean, it just shows how much like you you love
Oh
all this
yeah,
stuff. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
like if I was to sit here and talk to you about my love of Hanna-Barbera cartoons and inspired me to go into animation, I could name the character designers and
Mhm.
all this stuff and animators and whatnot. It's just because that was a big influence to me. You know, um, I hear it. You know, that and some of these names that I have to go back and look at the work because I don't remember everybody, but the names sound familiar to me that you've mentioned.
But
Um,
sometimes it comes from unexpected source. A few years back, I found out that a certain instructor who I didn't have, but who taught it at Kane, had passed away.
mhm,
And I don't know how it wound up on my feed on Facebook or something, probably through some other friend of mine on Facebook. So I went to leave a nice comment on the page. They have these memorial pages for the funeral parlors.
yeah,
And I left a little story there because it meant something to me. One time while I was in college, or just out of college, because they still allowed us to come and use some of the facilities at the college,
mhm,
um, I had an assignment for a logo design for this magazine for a column, and they wanted calligraphy. Now, I'm not a calligrapher, but I can draw, so I can kind of draw calligraphy and then ink it,
yeah,
rather than take a certain type of a quill pen and create it naturally, organically. I can design it and then ink it.
yeah,
So I was using their photostat camera to enlarge or reduce or something my layout. And who walks in but an instructor called Martin Holloway, who's like excellent calligrapher, logo design guy. And I said, and we knew each other, even though he'd never, I'd somehow managed to get through all my 5 years at Kane. And we had this conversation with him without ever having him as an instructor, which was kind of phenomenal. And I've experienced the same thing at FIT, by the way, where
yeah,
some students say, I don't know how it happened that I didn't wind up having one of these students. Um, anyway, so I called him over and I said, what do you think of this? And he said, oh, that's really pretty good, Ray. And I'm like, I don't want to hear that. How can this be better? And it's a really, yes, I want you to tell me how I can make this better. I know it's okay. I'd like it to be better. And he took a sheet of tracing paper and a pencil, and he just started, pointing things out where I had certain expressive curves, little flourishes that the whole design could be improved by repeating certain things throughout the composition, thinking of
mhm,
instead of thinking as calligraphic letters, thinking of whatever the title was. I don't remember what the title of the thing was, but thinking of it as a composition. And he didn't use that word composition, but that's what I'm calling it. Where he basically said, "Well, you've got this lovely stroke here. You have an opportunity to do that over here and over here and over there. And you know how you did this here? It'd be a good idea if you did it here and here." And I'm like, I know to do that in a drawing and a painting, but it never occurred to me to do it there. And I looked
yeah,
at it and said, "Thank you." And I basically and it made it so much better. It looked so much more professional. But
yeah,
just that was an amazing little natural for him piece of teaching.
yeah,
I've never forgotten that. That in one moment he just took the veils off my eyes that I actually could. I was like, wow, of course, it's all composition, it's all design. And I know that, but somehow I wasn't thinking it. Even now, when I'll do pieces, I'll do something and I'll look at it and go, why didn't I repeat this here and there? And why didn't I do this to balance this and this? Because you're in a hurry or whatever. You get short sighted. You're focusing on one little thing. But that was a wonderful piece of teaching from Martin, off the cuff, that I'll always be grateful for.
that's awesome. I love a story like that.
Well, you're a
You know,
teacher, so you
yeah,
do that
exactly.
too.
It's great to hear. I won't go into the story, but you made me while you're talking made me think of one of my college professors that really. It's funny. He was one of my computer animation teachers, and he wasn't really a traditional artist. He was a puppeteer, and he taught animation though and understood it. But the one thing that he did was he reignited my interest in puppets, and I ended up working in puppetry for about 3-4 years because
Yeah.
of him. You know, not with him, but because of having him
Yeah.
as an instructor. So it's
Yeah.
just amazing
Yeah.
stuff what they could do. So yeah, why don't we move on? Because listen, I'm sure we can talk about art and
before we
artists.
talk about Tony's work, I was
Yeah.
thinking I do have 2 slideshows. Last times I managed to show some slideshows. I'm not sure if are we on the same platform as before? Can I present and everything just like
Yeah,
last
you just send it to, you just hit present or
time? Okay.
share screen, something on your side. I don't know what it looks like from
Will
your end.
would it count as a video file or slides? It's a Microsoft Word. And not
I would
Microsoft, sorry, not Microsoft Word, PowerPoint. It's a PowerPoint.
PowerPoint. You should be able to open it as a document or share your screen.
Okay.
I think on your side it says present as well.
Yeah, I clicked on present. My choices are slides, video file, and share screen.
Then I would probably go to share screen.
Okay, so I should first call it up first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me, where is PowerPoint on this docket? Sorry, I hate to
Oh, it's okay.
it's not. Of course, it wouldn't be on the docket, would it? Okay, let me. Though, believe me, I've used this one. Actually, not this one, but this exact model to do this kind of thing many times. They became so handy for remote teaching, PowerPoints. So
Yeah.
I'm looking for. Okay, here we go. This applications. Okay, what is this? Sorry for the delay on this. We can talk about something while I'm doing this.
Yeah, no. Well, let me. I mean, because we're going to talk about Tony's stuff in a moment. I'm trying to think. Since you named so many great artists, I could literally ask you something.
Well, I
about,
got to meet some of them, which is just amazing. That's actually for me, that's a killer. And I talked about this last time. That one of the amazing benefits of going to the arts is when you actually get to meet your heroes, especially when they turn out to be really warm, inviting, helpful people, supportive people. It's and you can't. I mean, I said it in our last interview. You can't put a price on it, but it really is like that. It's just amazing. But even since a lot of them passed away at this point, just even my peers, artists, from Joe Jesko to George Pratt and Scott Hampton and John Van Fleet, and I didn't want to leave out any names like Dave Dorman, guys like Steve Ellis, and just there's so many that I interact with. Billy Tucci, people I see at shows. Fred Harper, Mark Teixeira, of course, who I'm still in touch with quite a bit. Michael Bayer, I'm in touch with occasionally. So many, just terrific artists. There's something in that kind of community that's just, I don't know, just it gives you sort of it's an anchor, emotional, psychological anchor that you kind of need in this, because when you're in the arts, it's I don't know. It's different than just showing up at a job, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, teaching is different because teaching you do take home with you, not as much as freelance illustrating, which is home. But it's still you take a lot of it home with you, and you're always thinking about, okay, what have I got to do, for next week. But freelance, you never get away from it in freelance. It's the very next thing you're working on.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to agree with you though about how great it is when you could, meet the people you've looked up to, who were your creative heroes, growing up. And I had a friend who passed away a couple of years ago. His name was Dan Necrosis. He was he ran the New Jersey chapter of the National Cartoonist Society. And he was one of those guys that if you were friends with him, he wanted all his friends to know each other and be friends with everybody. And he introduced me to so many people just because that was his thought process. I got to meet so many people that I respect in the industry because of him. Some people I still stay in contact with. Others, it was, hey, a great experience, My all-time, not that Dan introduced me, but my all-time favorite cartoonist is Sergio Aragonés.
Yeah.
I don't, I think everyone is going to say that.
He's pretty easy to love and admire.
Yeah, but I'll tell you a short story. When I was in second grade, I believe, I had to spend a week in the hospital, and I don't know who it was, but someone gave me a Mad magazine, and that's when I discovered Sergio and all the other greats that, we're going back to what, like 82, 83, and I became a regular Mad reader because of it. But it was Sergio's work. It was because of him I really went back and continued. And then, I don't know how many years later, I think I was in middle school, I discovered Gru. And then that became one of my all-time favorite books, and I collected everything that Sergio would put out. But I got to meet him twice at because he doesn't really do East Coast shows anymore.
Yeah.
And I got to meet him twice. And the first time I met him, I was doing a convention, and he was doing a convention. And I just went over to give him a piece of my work to say, hey, listen, man, you were my biggest inspiration. I told him the story about how when I was a kid and in the hospital, and he's like, sit down, and we had like greatest conversation. And there's other stuff that happened, but I won't go into that right now. And then later, I just met him when my wife and I were dating, and he, I have an original Gru up there on my wall, probably my all-time favorite piece.
Very cool.
And I have a couple of things on the other side hanging up, like a signed hat and all this stuff. But he was like so genuinely nice.
Yeah.
He even gave me a deal on Gru, on the Gru picture and stuff. It was one of those things where he's like, oh, at price $175. I got it for like maybe $125. I paid for it. He's like, he knocked, and I know he's the artist. He can charge whatever. He's Sergio, but I mean, I thought it was very nice that he knocked some cash off for me, and had a great conversation. And there's a picture my wife took of both of us, and it is the one time in the world I think I'm like starstruck and goofy looking meeting an artist.
That's who Sergio is. I don't think a lot of people who think superhero comics have a clue, but he is. I discovered him with a paperback book called Viva Aragonés. That came out in the 70s. I forget who gave it to me, but it was given to me in high school. And it was just amazing. His stuff was great. The little bio on him is just full of all these insane drawings. They're just so cool. And I did get to meet him later. He wouldn't remember me, but we met several times. I was more like, my wife was a comic strip editor. So I was more like the husband of, this comic strip editor rather than, even though I'm an artist. So he knew me briefly for a time then, but there's no way he remembers me amongst the millions of people who love him and adore him as an artist. But no, he's amazing, and I got to hang out with him and other people like that in groups at the Reuben Awards things. And you're there, and you're like, oh my God, I'm with Sergio Aragonés, I'm with Arnold Roth, I'm with Mel Lazarus, and we're like, how is this possible? Because I looked at their stuff all my life basically, and there I'm hanging out having drinks and dinner and everything with these guys, and of course Schultz and Mutz illustrated, Patrick McDonnell and a bunch of others, and they're just amazing. It's just amazing. Well, you know what the Reuben Awards are like. They just they're terrific. The gathering, the groups, the artists. Most of them, I'm sure there's horror stories in there, but I don't know any of them. All my interactions with these people have been golden. They've just been wonderful.
Yeah, that's something. I mean, I'm not a member of the NCS. One day, hopefully.
I was for years, but then at a certain point, I wasn't attending anymore after my divorce. Basically, I think I attended one or maybe two of the ribbons afterwards, and that was it basically. So I didn't really keep up with it.
No, but I was going to.
Organization.
Oh yeah, no, they're great. I was going to say I got to meet Arnold Roth a couple of years before he passed away. And I mean, I own a print. I don't know if it's up. It's not up on the wall. I think I took it down. But just great chatting with him. He's one of the guys.
He's brilliant. He's a jazz musician. His wife Carolyn is a painter. So I mean, good painter. So he's just you know, in his own way, he's an artist, really.
Yeah, yeah. I remember the first time I met him. I went to one of the NCS events. You know, like when you're not an official member,
Yeah.
they say pay what. And he was just sitting on a couch. I was waiting for the to begin, and I sat down next to him. I didn't know who he was. We started talking, and then I saw him like 2 weeks later at a convention, and he remember. And that was the last time I saw him. And then about I think 2 years later, it was
He
when
like
he.
others helped out on Little Annie Fanny, so I asked
Mhm,
him a few questions about his involvement because I painted Little Annie Fanny for Playboy for a few years
mhm.
when they revived it, and so I was milking any artist who had contributed to Kurtzman and Elder, like like Jack Davis, who helped out quite a bit, and Arnold Roth. I mean, Al Jaffe might have helped. I talked to him very briefly one time, but you know, he barely had any. Arnold barely had a recollection of it, you know. But because it was just another thing, these guys were just powerhouses, you know. They
Yeah,
just knocked the stuff off left and right. Amazing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Oh, it's amazing.
I do have the slideshow.
Okay.
I've got two of them, one for a trading card, one for a cover. And I think it's sort of like a little step by step that I show my students.
Yeah.
So I can share these two. They're not, I know I showed you some stuff last time. These are different. These are actually, you can see the steps involved in doing the art. There was a little bit of that in the magic card thing that we showed last time.
Mhm.
So I think we show these two things. Then after that, we can maybe talk about Tony's book.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
So
I haven't rewatched our last. I don't rewatch the videos because I hate how I
no.
sound.
Well, I hate to ask you. Look, you sound like a guy who's actually got a bit of a radio voice. I
Thank
don't
you.
have that naturally. I mean, I'm sure if I talk like this or something, or put on some kind of a voice, maybe I could train myself. But I know people who naturally. Scott Hampton has a great voice for radio. There are people who have got that natural great voice. I heard myself and you sound so much better than me. Trust
Thank
me.
you. Thank
Okay.
you.
I hate the way I sound even on an answering machine.
Yeah.
So I don't know how my students, you know, put up with it. So let me do two things. First of all, let me
Yeah.
put this thing up as format slides. Where is it? Play from start. And okay, and no, actually, I can't actually do that for a second. Second. No, I can't. I thought I could do this first. No, I'll have to do it the other way. All right, so I'll have to share it first,
Mhm.
share my screen, which means I probably won't see whatever it is going on. Um,
Think
why is it asking? It's giving me some weird permission thing for no reason.
Ooh. That might
Um,
be. If that doesn't work, just email me the files and I can open them up.
okay, let's try one more time. I'm just not asking. I don't know why it's actually asking for permission on. Well, first of all, I'm not even sure what I'm supposed to. Okay, here we go. No. It's choose what to share with StreamYard. Um, None of what I want to share is on. Oh, it's asked me to share tabs instead of share my screen. Oh, here we go. Entire screen. Maybe. No. Here we go. I'm going to share the entire screen, which is going to. No, Chrome has lost permission. Ugh.
Just
So
just
yeah.
drop. Just send me an email with the things
Okay,
that.
they are not. They are large files. Just
That's
so
fine.
you know.
That's fine. As long as it doesn't. I mean, I don't know how quick it'll go, but
Well, you know, there is the way it's going to go with you would be the same as if I think if I opened it up in my email. Where are my other tabs here? This is what I actually don't like about being on one of these cameras is staring into a monitor close up. Everyone can count my nose hairs to see where is. Oh, here it goes. Because I got this tiny screen in front of me, so you know it's not like I can. So what I might be able to do if is I can put it up. I think it'll be. It may not look the way I want it to look, but it might give me this as an option. Let me find you again. Let's try present again, and let's see if it'll allow me to pick. There we go. I don't know what it's going to actually look like, but let's see. Can you see? Can you see it?
I got the screen now. There we go. And you
Yeah.
know what? I'll even.
Yeah.
What?
Unfortunately, I won't be able to play it like a standard slideshow. Like a standard slideshow, you can click on it and moves to the left, moves to the left. Keeps.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, moves to the right, moves to the right, moves to the right.
Yeah.
Here, I'll have to scroll down.
Let's give it a full screen.
Yeah. So I won't be able to, since I'll be doing it, I won't be able to see what it is that but yeah, do it full screen so that I don't have to. I think maybe I can just go plus. Oh, no, that's making it bigger. I think I just want to go next page, next page, next page. It may not let me do it. I'm just looking to see if there's a way I can make it just go page 1, page 2, page 3, but there doesn't seem to be a button for that. No. Okay, so I think I'll have to just scroll down, which is not the best way. And also may not even work. I don't know. What does that look like? I can't even see.
It's let me just move us to another monitor so I can see it better.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, I'm moving it to my Cintiq so I could.
Yeah, it's not the best way.
We're
experiencing operating difficulty.
It looks like looks like a nice pencil drawings, 4 of them.
No, it seems to be working. I tried to use Google Slides, but I'm not really familiar with Google Slides. So I clicked on it and did nothing. Okay, well, you probably can't see these as well as if you can actually see a full screen, which I did very often with Blackboard Collaborate. But these are layouts for a comic book called Knock 'em Dead, which is probably the last thing I talked about at our last get-together. And it's a comic book that I'm sure it only won a few issues about an amateur comedian who's doing really horrible, and he's in a car with a slightly successful comedian, and they both die in a car crash. And he basically dies, but he comes back to life. When he comes back to life, he hears dead comedians, and the dead comedians give him jokes. And my joke for it is, they're not funny. They're not funny all the time. They don't know they're not funny. Because these dead people, but they're comedians. Anyway, these are the 4 layouts. They liked this one, which is a darkened version of it. This, when I did research for what does it look like for a comic up on stage when I was doing the layouts, I found this photo with the red light on the audience. And I thought, wow, these guys could be demons. They can be, whatever. And I thought, skeletons might be better than demons, because demons might be a little too distracting, every individual demon. So this was the idea I came up with. And there are like 2 different color studies. I normally don't show color studies, but in this case, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it straight, which is the one on the left, or if I wanted to go a little bit more flat and abstracted, like on the right. So I wound up showing it to the art director, and the art director picked the traditional one, the straightforward one. And so now here's reference that I shot using a bunch of toys. I have a lot of 12-inch action figures.
Mm-hmm.
I get models occasionally, but I can't use models as often. I mean, I cartoon, I use toys, and I use real people.
Yeah.
And so this was helpful, but not really helpful, not natural enough. But yes, I have a microphone for a 12-inch action figure. Yes, I do, including a microphone stand, because I'm a crazy collector. Here's my nephew, who's tall for his age. Actually, he's the same height now that he's actually older. And he's posing up in my brother's apartment, which is much cleaner and less crowded than mine is, because mine's a hoarder's, cave. And he was perfect for it, actually. And here I happen to have 12-inch action figure skeletons, posable. And I have enough of them to create a little, I have enough for a squadron. And basically I have an audience of toy skeletons. and I photographed them and I made them red, just because I knew I was going to want them red. So I thought, well, I've got this file. Why don't I play with it as reference? Here's a zoom out so you can see how I pose them as the audience. Yes, I've got tiny little 12-inch action
Yeah.
figure folding
I
chairs.
was gonna say,
Yes.
this is awesome.
Yeah, I know. Well, if you're a collector-holic like me of 12-inch action figure stuff, I have, I can pose an entire graphic novel without using a human being, with all the toys I have. So I should do that sometime. But isn't it hilarious because they really look like they're having a great time.
Yeah.
And then you can't see this clearly, but here's more of my type pencil on the actual board that I'm going to paint it on. And here are my first layers. Now, a lot of underpaintings I do are done in burnt sienna. This is acrylic, by the way. But this one I knew I was going to go really dark anyway. So and again, this was a rush job, by the way, which I think I mentioned in the last interview. So I went in with a blue-black called Payne's Gray and burnt sienna. And I just basically do sort of an underpainting. And then I just keep building it up, adding more volume. And let's see, is there more? Yep, still a little bit more in the painting. But again, getting closer to the flesh right now. With burnt sienna does a lot of the heavy lifting for that. And then glazing the color on it. Okay. And now it's getting close to done. It just needs some more opaque coloring to give more body. So it doesn't look so much like a color drawing. And now it's almost close to done, not quite. I show this to my students up on a large screen, and I can kind of field questions about it. But yeah, you see that microphone? That microphone stand? The microphone actually got a picture of a real microphone because the toy one I have doesn't really look as good as that. But the microphone stand, that's my toy microphone stand.
Really?
So, yeah. So, it looks accurate enough. And this is just, let's see, is this one done? Let me see. Yeah, it's got the signature. I got my little initials on there. So that's the way the finished piece looked like. I did punch up the contrast a little bit. It needed a little bit more contrast. And then is how it printed. So in its design, I already knew about the logo from the previous ones they showed me. This is issue number 2, and they showed me images of issue number 1 and 2. And mentioned last time that Tony Harris did one of them. He did a great job. And so I knew that whatever I put there had to be more shape than something that couldn't be, covered up in my design. So it worked out well because you're basically looking at if he's a performer, whether you know he's a comedian or whether you know he's a singer. The idea is you're looking past him. Of course, this doesn't happen in the story. There's real people in the audience, not skeletons. But it adds this kind of, weird life-death thing to it.
Yeah.
So, it's more symbolic as as an image rather than literal. But I'm very pleased with this one. I like the way this one came out. I thought it had a nice concept to it. And it was fun. It was done in acrylic. It was done relatively quickly. It wasn't because it had to be. I had about a week and a half on it.
Yeah. I have to say, first of all, I love it, but I think it's great that that you're using toys as reference to help you. I have a friend. I don't know if you're familiar with Jay Piscopo.
I know the name. I definitely know the name. Oh, Jay Piscopo. Okay,
he's done some work and stuff, but Jay was on my show years ago, and he's a big Mego action figure collector. And he was like, I use my Megos for reference. He goes, you have a character, you bend them into position, the clothes wrinkle, you have, and I started doing that, and I can't believe how helpful that has been for me.
Yeah, no.
I only got some superheroes. I got not that he's a Mego, but I got like a Mego knockoff of Birdman. But I got like a Superman Mego. I got all this stuff now, and I'm like, I keep them close, so that when I need reference, I go look at them now.
I have a ton of 12-inch action figure heads. Like I have a collection of heads. It sounds macabre. I've got little drawers. People get these little draw kits, shelving things where they put screws and bolts and stuff like that. They're made out of plastic these days. For your garage, I have them full of like toy parts, lots of heads. Like seriously, just tons of heads. I bought them on eBay, almost all of them, and different females, different men, beards, bald, what have you. And occasionally I just pull out a head. Sometimes I put it on a body. Sometimes I'm just looking at the head. Some of them have expressions, some of them don't. But I have this huge collection of heads in addition to figures. I don't know how many toys I have at this point. It's insane. I
Yeah.
have even horses. I have so much stuff. It's crazy.
You
It's
know,
insane. It's insane.
yeah, but I think we're all like that as artists. Either we think of them as we love this stuff and we want to collect them, or hey, this could be a good reference in the future, and I should have this, horse. I should have whatever because at some point I'm going to need a reference to draw it. And no matter how much you look on the web at images, there's nothing like holding something in your hand and feeling it. And if it's a good sculpt, you got muscles there, you got whatever you need. And I don't know if it's me coming from my puppetry background or what, but when I hold a figure and feel how material is, whatever, I can draw it better, you know um, and so I don't know, but I think all of us, every person I know has who does art has a bunch of toys.
Well,
I mean,
nowadays, definitely. Now I'm
it-
trying to look. I was moving things around. Here we go. Okay. So what I'm going to do, okay, you got me back, is I'm going to share the other one
mhm.
because I did put it up. Let's see if I can, it should give me the option. Here it goes. This is a trading card of Psylocke.
Okay.
Okay. For some reason, it's not showing the first page, but it doesn't matter. First page just says, that it's Psylocke, but it's not showing up for some reason because we're not using power. Can you see it? The little
Yeah,
sketch?
yeah. I'm just
Okay.
bringing it back to my Cintiq so I
Okay.
can see it better.
Yeah, it's so I do the sketches the same. Unlike for the cover sketches, I do them, about, I don't know, like maybe 4x6 or 5x7. But for the trading cards, I do the sketches the same size they're going to print, so I can work out the composition. Knowing that in the case of these cards, the logos and things are going to be toward the lower left and lower right across the bottom, I designed this full figure piece with the figure high up and plenty of foreground information. That's why she's the way she is. I did a bunch of them, but this is the one that was accepted. Actually, quite a few, but this is the one they accepted. They don't see it small; they see it large, like this. I enlarge it, and I think I need, for my own sake, I need to bring this down a little bit. Let's see. I'm trying to zoom
Is
that,
that
but
grayed out? I think that's the actual size. Yeah.
I don't know what. I'm not sure what you're seeing. I was trying to zoom out a little bit, but I can't
Yeah,
zoom out.
no, I saw it, but it looks like it's gray. That like it doesn't have. That's not active.
Have to go back to your page to see what you're seeing. No, that's it. This is that's you're seeing it. I just wanted it to not be cropped, like so I wouldn't have to go up and down
Yeah, no,
in
no. What I'm
order
saying
to.
is the minus button looks grayed out, like that.
Oh yeah, so I
It's not
guess it
active.
doesn't look like it to me, but it looks. Oh, there we go. So it worked there, but it won't work on the Psylocke. Yeah, for some reason it won't work here. It worked on the other one, but doesn't work here. Okay, so now here's my color study, done the same size as the trading card would be. And basically, it's mostly cools, with balanced off with worms, basically. It's a pen line with some watercolor splashed in it. And this piece is going to be done in watercolor, mostly because it could be. I didn't need to go through color. Here's a zoom in of it, but it's done very small, size of a trading card. Okay. Now here is a working drawing, as I would call it, final drawing on a separate sheet of paper. There were two other studies also done where I kind of drew the bottom and I drew her a little bit separate. And then when I put her on the actual board I was going to paint, I made some adjustments to her face.
Okay.
Now I didn't have a model for this, so I used kind of toys and books and everything. And Olivia Munn had sort of an attitude on her face that I liked, so I added that onto her here. So it doesn't look exactly like Olivia Munn, but I wanted just she had this kind of good, like I like to use the word as attitude, and I like the way it looks. So I think this is the way it looks we'll look in the final painting. So, and you can see there's a little bit of difference. This is a pencil drawing. It's not really meant to be painted on top of. This here, the drawing is lighter, a little more careful, and more linear, with just a little bit of very light tone that's going to get this. It's going to disappear as the paint goes over it.
Yeah.
So, all right. So this is a Xerox, not Xerox. I'm using an old term. In Photoshop, I make it darker and I print it out because as I'm painting it, I'm going to cover up the drawing, and I want an image of my intention that I can refer to as I paint. So I have this printed out like on 8.5 by 11, and I keep it next to me while I'm painting because I'm going in there with transparent and opaque watercolor. So it means that stuff's going to disappear. So here's my underpainting done in burnt sienna, but with a little touch of black, not black, it's really Payne's gray, but almost black, just near the collarbone there, and near the belly, just as so I could see the darkest I'm going to go. And I could see the values better that way, visually, by putting some sort of a good intense dark down. So, but here I'm redrawing it, but tonally with burnt sienna brown watercolor. Okay, and here is, I erased the pencils. And it's tight enough to hold up without pencil at this point. And then there's like sort of a glaze of yellow, mostly in the background, and some in the foreground. And then the bravery test kind of thing of going in there with the sky. Now going right over, nearly over her face, not quite. I could go over the face, but then I have to really heavily opaque the face. I just wanted to go over enough of the hair and other areas so that everything kind of, everything. I don't want it to look like pieces are cut out and put against each other. I want it to look like it's all in the same it's all one scene. And so I need an overlapping of paint. Okay, started glazing down some more color all over the background and starting to do on the midground behind her. And the sentinel. Okay, a little bit more. I should just be doing it this way. And more. And it does now work on the fingers, some of the foreground, like, cracks in the rocks. Now onto her outfit. And this is like 4-ply Bristol. It might be plate finish. Now it doesn't work as well as the old Strathmore Bristol. Used to be an amazing watercolor paper. It wasn't meant to be watercolor paper. It's meant as a drawing paper. And there are plenty of artists who bemoan the change that happened. I got the information from a person who came to FIT representing Strathmore, a young person, who said, of course, she had no idea that it could ever have been used as a watercolor paper, because that's not what it's for. But what happened was printing paper companies like this change hands to other paper companies.
Yeah.
And when they come in with their own equipment and their own methods. So in paper, the sizing, which is the finalizing, which is like the surfacing, the way it's sealed, changed it so that the Strathmore that I used to do watercolor on for like almost 30 years now no longer takes water. Like you put water on it, a sinkhole happens.
Wow.
Yeah, so it stinks.
Now this is on the Strathmore Bristol, you were saying?
Yeah, the Strathmore Bristol 3-ply and 5-ply just don't take it at all. 4-ply takes it a little bit. This is 4-ply. Okay. A 2-ply takes it, but 2-ply is not very durable for repeated washes. Yeah. You're going to have valleys, and no matter how much you tape it down, it may never completely flatten out. If you're doing a lot of work like this, if you're doing lots of layers, it may not flatten out. But this one did okay. I think Charles Vess recommended this 4-ply. He said that the 4-ply was still pretty good, but he's run into some problems with this stuff also. A bunch of Dan Brereton, other artists who've used it, bemoaned the fact that it's not the same. Okay, so now when I start painting her outfit to liven up the sort of blue-black outfit, I put in sort of purples and blues based on my color study. I'd done a color study and I kind of popped around, and basically it's an aesthetic. It's what I think looks good. Sure, it could be done just in a boring black, gray, white highlight, boom. But I want color. I want I want blues in there because comics always have blue in their black for some reason, and some purple because there are purples going in the background. She has purple hair, all that reason, to put it together. But when I do that, a lot of the black kind of lost some of its tone because I'm going over with semi-opaque, washes. And by semi-opaque means there's a little bit of white gouache mixed in with my watercolors. I'm not working in gouache, though. If I was working in gouache, it would still pretty much look the same. I recently started working in acrylic gouache, and it handles pretty much like watercolor and pretty much like acrylic, except flatter, like this. So basically, as I'm laying down these washes and I'm floating into the dark areas, some of the dark areas get lighter, and I'm going to wind up going back and darkening some of them. So I'm undoing some stuff, but I'll go back and redo it. So now I've worked on her hair, started to redefine. Now this is why I have that darkened Xerox, basically. Well, it's a printout. I used to Xerox them that way. It's a printout because my drawing is in that printout, and my drawing is underneath this. Now I might lift a little bit of it out of that opaque blue, area, but it's not going to disappear completely. So I'm going to paint opaquely on there, and I need the reference of my drawing. I'm not going to just completely, I might make some changes, but I'm not, I really want to see what it is that I drew that I was happy with at the time when I started this painting. So, I went in there precious and pretty much finished her hair, reinstated some of the darks, did some work on the sentry, did additional work on a little smoke in the background, just lots of things all over. Still haven't worked on the side blade and her sword too much. And here I've done the sword and the side blade. And I kind of think, I pretty much thought this was done at this point. By the way, if you can notice, it's taped down, and I use Scotch Magic tape, the green stuff. The Magic tape is the one with the green package. It gives a really good seal, and you can lift it up if you're very careful, if you soften it with a blow dryer. Because I need a really good seal. The blue paper that everyone uses will not work. It's good for acrylic, but it's not good for watercolor. It'll buckle up and stuff will seep underneath. Okay, so this was practically, in fact, look, you see my initials are there. So I did it, I scanned it, and I wasn't crazy about the smoky thing in the background. I thought that little shape was distracting. So I went back and I softened it up with another wash. And I thought, okay, this is finished. So let me scroll down. So this is the finished piece. I spattered in a little bit on the foreground just to give it a little rocky texture. If you notice, I didn't, even the finger in the foreground, it kind of fades away to the left so that it's not too distracting. I don't want your eye to go completely off the paper if I put like a strong shadow over on the underside of the finger, it might lead your eye away from the picture, and I want to keep your eye coming back to her.
Yeah.
So that's all that compositional stuff. But there are, as with Martin Holloway that I learned, there are lots of little repeated curves and little things that kind of accentuate and counterbalance when you create one of these pieces. And okay, there it is with the tape taken off.
Wow.
And there it is as a trading card. And it looks too big on here. I don't know how to get rid of it. It printed darker than the original. Now, the original is probably a little darker than this, but no, the original is the way this is how it really looks. Mm-hmm. And when it printed a little darker. But when it prints, it's printing with a lot of other pieces on a huge sheet. Those uncut trading card sheets?
Yeah.
When you're running a press, there's a lot of other art on there, and some of it has more blacks and whatever. So it isn't necessarily that anyone went in there and specifically darkened my image as much as that it's printing with a lot of the other images. And it looks good. It's not like it doesn't look good.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic piece.
So anyway, that's that piece. I just figured I'd share something kind of educational, step by step, especially anyone who doesn't really know my work. There are two examples of my stuff.
That's honestly amazing. I love watching process work. Actually, I spend a lot of my day. I don't want to say. Well, I don't name the place I work on the show, but I work for an online art academy, and I work with some very amazing instructors. and I get to watch them in classrooms. And some days when I have downtime or I'm doing something that's not something I need to be super focused on, I'll turn on a class and just watch them draw, watch their process of whatever it is. And I'll go into classrooms, whether it's animation, whether it's illustration, painting, this type of stuff is very fun for me. And when I'm not doing that, that's I don't want to say this is my big part of my day, but I watch YouTube videos like that.
Mhm.
I'm actually a big fan of the videos Stephen Rude does, where he breaks down different artists. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those, but
I've never seen a full video. I've seen the
mm,
stuff that he shares on Instagram, like the
yeah,
snippets.
yeah. I'll watch like those videos, and I it's one of those things where yeah, I'm already an artist. Yes, I draw, I get published, but I always feel like I could be learning, and I just like to keep. It's kind of like what you said earlier about having a sharing a studio. You know, when I've never like really shared studios, but back when I was in college or even high school, you'd get together with your friends and you would do work, and you kind of just had this great experience, kind of like learning off each other or being inspired by each other, or just like even if you're having kind of like a crappy day, you just see your friend working, and all of a sudden
Mm.
it's like, boom, that's great. It's just feels good. So for me, since I don't have that, sometimes I'll do video chats with friends and we'll just work, because everybody's all over the place. But
Yeah,
sometimes I'll watch these YouTube videos of people working, just so it feels like I'm back
yeah.
in that kind of atmosphere, whether I'm in someone's studio or I'm hanging out with friends or whatever. So it gives me that, that feeling I can't get without being away from my studio here. You
Yeah.
know,
Now,
so,
Dave Dorman, for a while, I don't know if he's still doing it. He hasn't shown up on my timeline for a while, but he was doing a thing called Dave's Dugout, and he would work on pieces live on Facebook. And I would just tune in and watch him paint, keep it in the background while I was doing other stuff because sometimes there's not too much going on.
yeah,
But it's always inspirational. Joe Dusko will often put up in progress shots of the Tarzan and the Barsoom paintings he's working on now, and it's great to see them. But the live feed thing is a kind of nice thing. Recently, I've done some whatnot stuff that way,
mhm,
um, and for me, it's very much like teaching remotely, except that at the end of it, I sell the piece that I paint. But
yeah,
I have to do them small because they never get done otherwise. But also because with the camera I'm using, I just can't. I couldn't do anything big if I wanted to.
yeah,
Um, but it's more just something I did because I saw other artists doing it, like friends of mine, like Buzz, um, who's a comic book artist who
yeah. I
would
know,
do
but
these. Yeah, Buzz.
yeah,
Um, I remember he started doing it during COVID. He wound up doing stuff like that. And I thought, wow, that's really great. He was selling his comics, but he was also doing these art drops and he was doing live demos. And I thought one of these days I'd like to do that. I can't do anything as quickly as he can, but I can lay something out ahead of time and I can paint it, pretty much have it done at the end, maybe touch it up a little bit before I mail it out to whoever wins it at auction. So
yeah,
I love the fact that these things are out there. Stuart Sager used to do it on Facebook. I think partially inspired, maybe by Buzz, but really more, I think, by Neil Adams, who was doing stuff like that.
yeah,
Which I used
yeah,
to
yeah,
also watch occasionally. It was really fun to hear him tell stories, and he would be live sketching. And Stuart Sager started doing sort of the same thing. He talked about comics and stuff that he liked, and he would work on a piece. And again, at the end, he'd either auction it or sell it outright. And I just thought this is a great way to use this technology, for us.
yeah. No, it's great. During the pandemic, actually, I started doing a lot of live draws and things myself, and it's actually how this podcast kind of formed. I mean, Get in Tune was an educational brand I'd take to conventions and run kids sections with, and I would do it with a friend of mine. He had a product called Comic Clubhouse, so we were Get in Tune with Comic Clubhouse, and then we eventually merged the two in Credit Kids, and we started doing, and because I was doing the live draws, he's like, hey, can we do a podcast? I said, sure. We started doing in Credit Kids podcast, or in Credit Chat we called it. And then I just I wanted to focus more on artists, he wanted to focus more on celebrities, so we kind of went our own ways, and I started doing this podcast because to me, I love talking to artists. I love artwork. I geek out over this stuff all the time. So that's really how Get in Tune became a podcast. But I was using it for live drawing during the pandemic myself, and when I can, I try to I get back on to do it, because it's like you said, you feel like you're teaching remotely.
Yeah.
I don't yeah, I don't teach anymore except some private tutoring here and there. And there are days I actually miss being in front of a classroom, in front of students. So that's when I'll pop on and be like, I need to do a live draw just so I could, draw and talk.
Yeah, well, when I did the whatnots, I did like 3 or 4 of them. I still want to keep doing them. It's just I haven't been able to. Like I've just been too busy with stuff,
Yeah.
so I haven't been able to do them. But I pretty much went into teacher mode. I mean, basically, like because I'm basically painting something for hours.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Start singing? You know,
Exactly.
I don't have a good enough singing voice. So I would ask for questions, but there weren't that many people there. There's a few people, they pop in, pop out. No one's going to sit there and watch me paint something for 3, 4 hours.
Yeah.
So I'll just mention stuff, just things, details,
Yeah.
interesting asides about what I'm doing and why I do it this way. And if someone asks a question, which doesn't happen too often, but if someone types in a question, I'll answer it. And, again, try and say something that I think is interesting to whoever's asking the question. But I generally can't tell on Whatnot who's actually there and how many people are there. I can't tell. There's like a number and it keeps changing, but I don't never understand if it's a real number. I cannot tell who's really there. I see people joined, but then I'm not sure they're still there because they join again later, which I shop on Whatnot. So I do know that I'm on, then I go check something else out, I come back. But you can't tell when they leave. You can only tell when they come back.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And if I see a number, which I'm not sure if it's accurate, it says 5, then it says 7, then it says 3, and then it says 1. I'm like, am I talking to myself? I'm probably talking to myself.
Yeah.
So, but I'll continue doing the piece.
Yeah.
And usually there's 3 or 4 people who are actually interested, possibly, in purchasing it, or at least seeing me finish it. So there's almost always someone interested in it.
Yeah,
so.
I actually find when people watch your work, first of all, there's more interaction when I'm drawing live with people. There's the conversation, but they're fascinated by how things are made. So that's when the questions come in all the time. They see what you're doing, they get excited for it.
If I did it here on Facebook sometime, because the problem I think with some people with Whatnot, like I have a nephew that wanted to check it out, but somehow he couldn't. He clicked on the link, and I don't know what it was or Whatnot. He just couldn't connect, so he gave up. And I don't think everyone has the app on their phone. You don't need it. You can do it straight through Facebook, but somehow it wasn't working for him. I can't walk him through it. So I thought maybe I'd like to do it on Facebook, sort of like this, but I'm not. I actually haven't done it this way, but it might be an easier way for people who are interested in my work, but who are not interested in like having the Whatnot app on their phone or registering with Whatnot. I think Whatnot's a great place to shop, personally. I enjoy buying comics there, but I can understand that maybe someone else just doesn't want to deal with it. But so maybe one of these days I'll try doing something like this and see if I get more people showing up. Because especially if I'm going to be chatting for 3 or 4 hours on a piece I'm working on, I'd like to know there's someone there listening. Rather than, because otherwise it's like, okay, I'm talking to myself. And that's like, that starts to feel a little strange. Like the way I'm talking right now, if you weren't there, right? And I'm talking like maybe Michael's here, but I can't quite tell. He logged on before, but I don't know if he's still there. But I'm still going to talk as if he's there because he actually asked a question. And then all of a sudden you join again. And I'm like, oh, so he's been gone for 5 minutes, 3 minutes, or half an hour. I don't know. That's the thing on Whatnot that you can't tell. And obviously you shouldn't be able to tell. It's not the app police. It's not supposed to let you know, anything. They're shopping elsewhere until they come back. But it makes it a little confusing. I don't know what your experience is with this. You've been doing this thing for a long time now. You have so many recordings.
Well, I will say this with the podcast itself, with the show. Um, Most of my viewers outside of once the pandemic ended, because when the pandemic was going on, I got tons of live audience. Most of my fans are other artists. I've discovered that through inviting guests on and be like, "Oh, I watch your podcast, I watch your show all the time," but not live. I watch it in my studio later on, like in the next day or two when I'm working. So we might, if we're lucky, get 10, 12 people watching tonight. But by Friday, this will have like 50, 75 views, something like that,
Yeah,
because artists are watching later on.
yeah,
Um, and it's, I kind of like that. I kind of like that I'm providing something for artists, some that I'm a huge fan of because I'm asking them to come on or whatever. And they're like, oh, yeah, we sat and we just watched your last one or whatever. But I like that I'm reaching other artists. A lot of people will do podcasts, and I'm actually played in a few comic shops. I know that there was a couple of comic shops that I go into when they find out I do this. They say let's put it on. I'm like, oh, not one of, because I don't like to hear my voice, but they're like, they'll watch it. And I've walked into stores where my podcast has been playing, um, and they like it because I talk to artists, I talk to writers, I promote stuff that's going on through Kickstarter or whatever crowdfunding. So I mean, the whole idea when I started this was to promote indie creators,
yeah.
really. And I've gone and talked to some more mainstream people since I started. Some of it, because I've wanted to talk to them, and I'm like, hey, I got this format, I can do it. Others because they're also now doing their own indie stuff, even though they're more mainstream, and I'm like, this is really cool. I get to talk to a lot of people, and bringing um, I'm bringing information to these shops, to the people in the shops who may have never heard of these. I've had people who have had Kickstarters tell me that certain stores have bought from them and reached out because they were on my show.
Oh, that's great.
So I love that I'm contributing in some way to the comic world. Um, in this format that I could bring, because there are days I'm like, I don't want to do tonight's podcast. I'm tired. I don't want to do it. But the second I get on, I'm like re-energized,
Yeah,
and this is I legitimately am thrilled sitting here talking to you and all the other guests I bring on. Um, it's just fun. This is this
well,
is this is
it's
my
one of the
damn good
reasons I
time.
like to do an occasional convention is because I meet people, I chat with people.
Yeah,
I spend tons of time at home in hermit mode, just myself, working
yeah.
away at things, doing things. I get out of my comfort zone to teach 2 days a week, so I'm not always here. But an occasional convention, an interview like this, I do want to. I don't want to be around people all the time. I don't, but I do like communicating with people, and
Yeah.
I do like meeting new people. One of the reasons I like going to conventions.
Mhm.
It does kind of, well, again, like with teaching, it kind of invigorates me, gets me excited about doing art, doing stuff, reading. I also promote Kickstarter projects all the time on my Facebook page. Really, that's the only.
Mhm.
On Instagram, it's too weird to promote
Yeah.
anything, but on Facebook all the time because I order Kickstarters all the time. I back a lot of Kickstarters,
Yeah.
and so I do share them. David Lloyd, from from Vendetta, has got this thing called Aces Weekly, which is digital comics, and I've been subscribing to it for a long time. It's very inexpensive, and you get a lot of comics to read. Really cheap, and it's the way to support independent creators. So, like once a month or so, I will share his thing, and just I don't know if it gets them anything. Just like when I share the Kickstarter thing, I don't know if they get any sales out of it at all.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great use of social media. Again, I
Yeah.
can't document if I've provided any sale for any of them, but I'll make this. It's a small effort. It doesn't take that much time,
Yeah.
and I really do think that if it, people really could make a big difference in the lives of the artists and writers who they say they admire by backing some of these things. And yeah, you don't have to get the deluxe version of anything, but you can get the inexpensive digital version or something.
I,
Make sure
I
you consider it.
yeah, I back a lot. I won't say I back a lot. When I'm able to back, because I'm not able to back everything I want. When
No,
I'm
no,
able
neither
to
can I. Neither
back a
can
project, I normally go for the digital copies. Um, you're paying $5, $10.
I.
It's a little something,
Yeah.
and if I can help out, I can help out. Um, but yeah,
Well, to me, it's also lazy shopping.
yeah,
Like basically, I'm pre-ordering something. The digital copy is fine, but and I do get that as part of the package when I buy something that's a
mhm,
hard copy. But I really do like getting a thing in the mail, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about this.
yeah, yeah,
Whether it's Jimmy Palmiotti's latest paper films project or whoever it is. I mean, there's a whole bunch. I know most of them. I don't know all of them.
yeah,
I've backed a whole bunch of Dan Brereton's. Just again, if it looks good, and obviously I have to have the money. If money's tight, then I don't do it.
yeah,
If I there was one guy, John McRae, who's terrific, but the shipping on it from England was just way too much, so I couldn't back it. Maybe
yeah,
eventually it'll be available in American edition and I can get it, but it was like twice the price that it should be simply because of the shipping to the States.
yeah. I
But
saw something like that recently coming from Australia that
yeah,
just ended, and I really wanted it because I follow one. It was an anthology, and I follow one of the artists on Instagram, and he follows me, and he's a fantastic artist, and I wanted to support him,
yeah.
but I'm just like I can't because of where it was coming from.
Well, I just couldn't do it. It's not like I couldn't at all afford it. It just seemed ridiculous,
Yeah,
to buy it in this way. Like I
mm,
said, as much as I'd like to support it, and it seemed to do fine without my support.
yeah,
But it's just I would have liked to because John's a good guy. I think it's his own project. I just I felt bad. Um, but if I can financially, if I'm in a decent enough shape, I do.
mm,
There
yeah,
are ones that sort of slide past me, and I'm like, wow, how did I miss this one? And I might ask, is there a backer kit thing, or is it available somewhere else so I can get it?
yeah, yeah. I've done
Um,
that too.
I just think that it's a really terrific way for people to get out projects that they can't really publish in a traditional fashion, whatever
Mm.
traditional fashion even is these days, because things are changing so much.
Yeah, I actually have lots of conversations with friends of mine about the way to get books out, the way to publish, and I have my own thought process. I'm not going to go into it now because it becomes a little bit lecture like, and
Well,
I'm
this
not,
is a good spin-off into the book that I'm working on. Let me
yeah, yeah,
adjust myself
exactly.
a little. Sorry. Ugh,
Yeah, no, no, no.
old man's got to set himself up a little bit
I,
better.
I,
So the book I'm working on, and I've been working on it for a while, but I've unfortunately August slowed me down. I've had just some personal stuff I had to deal with that ate up a lot of time. I was a little public about it on Facebook page. I needed to put together some money for some veterinary bills for my cat. So basically, now I don't think the cat's going to make it in the long run,
oh,
but I needed money for like possible surgery. And so basically, what I did was I was selling a lot of art because I don't want to. If I needed a loan, I could find a loan. If I wanted to do it as some sort of a credit card thing and pay it off, I could do that. I don't want to do that. I own stuff. I can sell stuff. Because some people said, "Oh, I can make a donation." I'm like, "No, I don't need a donation. I'm not doing a GoFundMe. I would. I'm not too proud. It's just it's not necessary. I'm not going to
yeah,
do a GoFundMe when I have art sitting around that I can sell. You know.
yeah,
So I even sell stuff that I own by other artists, which I might sell before I would do a GoFundMe.
yeah,
But I sold my own stuff. So through the help of one dealer who's a great guy who sold a few trading card pieces for me and bought one, and then through the wonderful people at Magic the Gathering Facebook page, the MTG Art Market, which is a great Facebook page for original art by Magic the Gathering artists. A lot of them are pet owners. They're very sympathetic, and they like getting some of the vintage preliminary art that I still had. So I did a number of auctions. That was a big help. And I sold some prelims and things which I had that were not magic related on my Facebook page. And I put together a nice, pardon the pun, kitty, set
mm,
aside a nice nest egg for the cat. It doesn't look like she's a good candidate for surgery unless she puts on a lot of weight, and it can't be therapeutic surgery, meaning removing the mass from her intestines. Instead, it can only be diagnostic, and diagnostic makes no sense if she doesn't gain weight because she won't be a good candidate for chemotherapy if she keeps losing weight. So
Yeah.
right now, I'm just doing palliative care. And if she ever puts on enough weight, then we'll try and do some other tests to determine whether or not it's lymphoma, which it probably is. But the first test did not prove lymphoma. So she just doesn't eat enough. She's interested, but she's not eating enough. But anyway, so that's been a big distraction, of course. And I did learn that I've got to prioritize my own private life. There's sometimes with work, including the college, where, man, I'm not like some sort of saint or anything, but there are times that at the college, I would do things because this was what I was planning on doing at the college, and I go and I do it, and I kind of am negligent about things that in my private life, and I got to stop that, you know.
Mhm.
Um, you know, there's just no need for it generally. So, and Tony Kikino's book sort of falls in that category because even though it's not technically a college project, if it has to wait, it has to wait. So basically, prioritizing something in my life that personally means a lot to me. Now, like I said, I don't know if she's going to be around for weeks or months. You know, it depends on whether she. But I did use social media to put together a lot of money. I'm very grateful social media as being a resource for that.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Basically, at this point, I think I'm on, back on sort of track. College has
Mhm.
started, so that's actually going to get a little bit in the way. I wanted to get this thing done in August because I knew once college started,
Yeah.
especially the beginning of the semester and the end of the semester. But the beginning of the semester is more so.
Yeah.
The first, like almost month, again, depends on the course you're teaching, but in my case, there's a lot of extra stuff. It's because of the way I teach the class. It's my own fault, but because of it, I have a lot of prep work to do, and it
Yeah.
means that I just don't. It eats up a lot of time, personal time. Um, but basically, the book, all the artwork is scanned and the pages are created, but it's not the final state of every page. But all the art is basically in position in a preliminary form for each page of the book. I'm going to be making a slight alteration on one page, and I'm going to be shoving. I'm going to delete because I discovered a new something else by him that I want to include in the book. I'm probably going to edit out a couple of pages from one section to make room for stuff that I think needs to go in. That what I just said would probably take a day or two. It's not a big deal, but I'm still working on, well, barely working on the writing. There's not a ton of writing, but there's lots of little pieces of writing that are going in the book, and that I haven't made too much, um, headway on. I've got a nice forward by a friend of his. Thank you. A friend of his, a painter named Joe Grieco, who's a terrific fine artist, does gallery work, and he's written a forward. Um, and I've got biographical information from his daughter, and I need to sort of edit that, put it together with some pictures of his early days in the beginning of the book. And then from the many interviews I conducted with him, the chats we've had over the years, well, the last couple of years, I need to put little paragraphs at the beginning of various sections of the book. So I know it's going to take a few weeks to do that. The few weeks that I had in August until I had this little mini emergency of mine. But he's a terrific artist. He was born in 1928. He was drafted into, well, for Korea during the Korean War, but they found that he was an illustrator, and so they stationed him at Quantico to work on the Marine Corps Gazette. What's up on the top right now for his Facebook and Instagram are these class demos. There's not going to be too much. There's going to be some of that in the book, but not necessarily the ones you're looking at right now. Basically the work is going to be mostly published work, so it's going to be vintage paperback book covers, men's adventure magazine illustration, um, and there's one movie poster that is going to be in there also. Um, some sample stuff he did because he was always drawing and painting. He's a drawaholic, paintaholic kind of guy.
Yeah.
It's gonna basically like it's gonna encapsulate his career like chronologically, not with every single date or anything like that, and not by decade or anything. More in just natural groups of going from the Marine Corps Gazette, because even though he had done some professional work before it, we don't have too many samples. Um, so after he got out of the Marines, he went back to working at the art studio that he was working on and did a lot of men's adventure and paperback book covers. which led to some illustrated books, which led to some sports books, sports illustrations, album covers, fashion illustration, to the Fashion Institute of Technology,
Mhm.
where he taught for like 30 something years, and personal work also toward the end there of the book. So it's going to have all this, this range of wonderful art, and it's also going to the book will be an inexpensive book. It'll probably be, I'm hoping, for around $30.
Okay.
Soft cover, nothing super fancy, just glossy stock. 128 pages is the estimate so far. I don't want to make it bigger because bigger's gonna, even at 128 pages, I may have a hard time keeping it down to $30. I just want it to be a reasonably priced book, so it's not some expensive deluxe thing, because it doesn't
Yeah.
have a large enough following for that. Um, but every book will come with an autographed print of some kind. So they will be getting autographed with the book. I'm not going to have him autograph every book because it's just a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
But I already have I've had him autograph a number of prints. There'll also be a bunch of prints available and some postcards and all kinds of things that I've already pre-printed. I pre-printed all the extras, all the add-ons, all already published. See, like the one you have right now, that illustration was from Guidepost magazine. It's a really snazzy piece of editorial art for a
Yeah.
story. Guidepost magazine was a longtime client of his, and I just love that one. The thing about Tony's, his work was always, he was always experimenting, trying different things. So his early work has a little bit of almost like an Andrew Loomis Sunblom look to it. And because he actually worked at a studio that was headed by one of the artists who worked at Sunblom Studios. Haddon
Mhm.
Sunblom did those famous Santa Claus Coca-Cola paintings.
Yeah.
And so one of the guys from there uh, was a co-runner of the studio where he worked, so he picked up on a lot of that technique. But he was always trying to change his approach, always just getting more creative. He wanted a lot of movement in his work, so it's shape, gesture, just he always wanted to make sure what it was doing, what it's supposed to be doing, whatever the image is, whatever the composition is. The emphasis is on movement, strength, shapes, boldness. He didn't like. He hates the word rendering, so I bring it up
Mhm.
as possible to him to irritate him. But he doesn't like the word rendering. Well, he just thinks that it can kill a piece of art. As you can see, look at this drawing right here. The figure, it's just wonderful,
Yeah.
but it's
It's
not
gorgeous.
overworked at all. It's not overworked. It's just like it's drawn by a guy who can draw. It's not all tickled and done all carefully. It's done very boldly and strongly by a guy who has the knowledge, and that's been his whole life, is just drawing and painting. I recently, through his friend Joe Greco, the painter, discovered a fashion catalog that he illustrated. He did these large paintings that are along the lines, I don't want to use a word like John Singer Sargent, but it's sort of like that. It's like, well, there's other artists like John Gannam, and who's the other guy? One doing religious paintings, Anderson. I think it might be Harry Anderson. It sounds like not the comic actor,
Yeah.
but this painter, who again, beautiful, like spontaneous looking painting. And the paintings for this fashion catalog are not typical fashion pieces at all. They're wonderful. Um, and I was able to borrow Joe's catalog and take pictures of it to include in the book. And that meant making some room in the book. But they're
Yeah.
wonderful pieces of art. They really deserve to be in the book. So it's going to have its
Awesome.
own section. So I've been really involved in this thing, and I've never run a Kickstarter before. I backed a ton of them, but I've never
Mhm.
run one. So I haven't created the graphics yet for it, which sounds like a simple thing, but it's not. I actually have to create whatever the writing is going to be, the campaign.
Mhm.
I book bookmark tons of these things that I've backed over the years. I would definitely be stealing and borrowing ideas from all of them,
Yeah.
learning basically from them, and putting the information down. But basically, to sum up, this is a terrific illustrator, had a really long career, did a lot of
Yeah.
wonderful work, painted some pretty famous people in the form of like album covers and even book covers, and like many other artists of his and illustrators of his generation, they're not they're not household names, and they're not, because he didn't do um, fantasy art,
Yeah.
superheroes. You know,
Yeah.
he doesn't have that niche audience that comes with that. Like if he had done a series of the Shadow paperbacks or Conan or something like that, then all of a sudden you have that little audience there. He did lots of everything, and the stuff is all well drawn, well composed, well painted. But like many other art, like I said, other artists of his generation, a lot of people don't know who he is, and I'm inspired by a bunch of people. Liam Sharp did a similar thing for the great Jack Katz, who did a comic book series called First Kingdom. I backed the Kickstarter for it. There's a lot of unpublished work by Jack Katz, and he did it just as a tribute to an artist that he greatly admires. And
Yeah.
another guy, I forget his name. I forget, like, I'm not going to say the name because I forgot his name. But a small publisher, I call him small, but he's been around for a while. Silent Publications, I think it's called, has put out a couple of books on Jack Faragasso. Now, Jack Faragasso did science fiction paperbacks, did a lot of romance paperbacks, and he's taught at the Art Students League forever. There's like a bronze bust of his head there on display. He's long retired. He's the same age as Tony. They're both around 95, 96. And I bought both those books from the publisher to look at them to see what his treatment was of it, because I basically sort of want to do the same thing. But I'm not really a publisher, so I'm doing this as a coworker, as a friend, comrade in art, basically. Just he deserves a tribute book. I don't expect a lot of orders. It's more just to create a book. Maybe it'll be reprinted by some publisher in the future. It won't be for profit. The money's not going to, like, he's not being thrown out on the street from where he lives or anything like that at all. This is not a charity. This is to disseminate his work. And any additional funds is, depending on the sales, are going to go to printing more copies of the book. And the family can use the books to, further, enhance his legacy over the years to come. He turns 96 next month.
Wow.
And he only stopped drawing this year. He's
Really?
he's been retired for a while now. Well, remote teaching wasn't possible for him, and so basically he wound up retiring. And he lives in a residence, really lovely place, but he's too old. He can't live alone, and he doesn't have family that lives right in the area. So it's a great place, very nice place. He's well kept for, and he's still sharp as heck. He had a memory issue, so he lost some of his memory, which makes it really hard to research his career when his memory's not good.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the family has limited. They have information, but not as much information. The kind of detailed information that an artist would want, because none of them are artists. But don't worry, they've been very helpful. Especially his daughter Annie has been great help. She's contributed an awful lot. And she's the one who's given me a lot of biographical notes. Some of the information I had, but she's provided much more. But it's different when it comes to, like, the actual jobs he did. Like, it took me quite a while before I found the Guidepost magazines he worked for. He had brought up once or twice, but it took a while to find the stuff. So I've got a huge Tony Kikino's collection of published stuff. I literally bought the magazines, the paperback books, the Guidepost magazines, Marine Corps Gazette magazines, thanks to eBay and other, like, online sources. So I've got quite a bit. Like, there's a Guidepost magazine, so that's the Cronkite cover. But very true. You can see how he wants to get to the meat of the thing, like just boom, 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 boom. That's what he aspired to do, rather than to do the more fully painted stuff. Though he can do the more fully painted stuff, and there's many pieces in the book where he takes it to that next level. Like, the guy can just draw.
I'm going to tell you right now, looking at these Facebook pages I've been scrolling through here, these pictures, I'd buy a book of just these little pencil.
Well, here's the thing. I am trying to put together a second book within the Kickstarter campaign of just drawings. But the drawings won't be all black and white, and they won't all be muscles, of course. But there's no way to fill. I mean, the stuff I've got enough stuff to fill many books. But I want to focus on his career. I want this to be more of a chronicle of his career. But I do want to do an additional, like, maybe 32-page sketchbook inside there, magazine size, but thinner, just stapled.
Yeah.
The main book is just going to be like a glue, sort of a perfect bound, 128-page softcover book. The sketchbook would be about 100. It would be 32 pages, and it's easy to put together. The tough part, picking what to put in there.
Yeah.
And the chronicle thing, the illustration dictates. You know what I mean? Like the illustrations I have from his career, that dictates what goes where. With the sketchbook, it's harder to pick because there's a lot of stuff he did as demos for his students that are instructional sheets, basically, with lots of swatches of color and all kinds. They're brilliant, but they feel like they belong in the main art book. But I can't fit them all in the main art book. There's too many of them. So some of them are going to make their way into the sketchbook. But there's just so much stuff. Like you're basically all the stuff you're looking at is just from the past couple of months. I've been posting stuff for over 2 years. So there's so much stuff. And the first stuff I put up was more published stuff. Here and there, I've been putting up, but there's just so much stuff he did for the students.
Yeah.
That what I do is I go on a theme. So there were 2 or 3 months where I was posting stuff that were like samurai and geisha sketches that he was just doing. He didn't have a client or anything. This was just stuff. He liked the shape, so he had a collection of books and photos, and he used the shapes and the movement that is described by those shapes by these pictures of samurais and geishas as a way of expressing that and teaching color, form, gesture. And so there's a ton of them. So I just was, for, like I said, over I think it's more than a couple of months, I was just posting those drawings. And intermingling there, occasionally I would do the Marine Corps Gazette. I posted his entire 2 years of the Marine Corps Gazette. I posted all the art he did for them.
Wow.
And the Guidepost magazine, I don't pretend to have all the ones that he did because I can't tell. That's a repeat of post of the first cover that he did.
Wow.
So, it came out about a month or 2 or 3 months after he was, he was in boot camp first and everything. That was July of 1952, I think. And he was a fan of Mill Sickles. He knows Alex Toth's work. So he, Milton Caniff, all of that. But a big fan of Mill Sickles.
Wow.
But again, terrific artist. I'm still a big fan. I'm enjoying doing this. This is a self-assigned hobby. That basically came from when he wasn't coming back at one of the offices at the college where I shared an office with him with several other teachers, was just full of his all these studies and stuff that he did for his students. And I was asked would I take over handling the organization of this stuff. And so I agreed to do it. And then I wound up deciding that I would create an archive online. And if I was doing a Facebook page, I could do an Instagram page just as easily and do both of them. And so I've been doing it. I still have enough of Tony's work for probably another couple of years, at least a year more, maybe 2.
This is the Instagram page, which I thought I hit follow on. I guess I did it. So I'm definitely following this. But yeah, this is everything we just saw, guys. So you
can probably scroll down pretty fast, and you can get if you get then you can get more to the book covers and stuff. Oh, that one. You see the note to the right up higher? There. Click on that one. That was for. Isn't that amazing? That is for Guidepost magazine. That is a striking piece of art. Wow. That's close to his. That's closer to his contemporary style.
Wow. That's gorgeous.
Yeah. That's. We don't know where any of this art went, by the way. So it's like we have these originals. That's how come I've got all these books and magazines. Yeah, keep scrolling down. Oh, there. Come back up. Okay. Back up. No, back up. Center.
Connie Francis.
That's Connie Francis. I came across that by accident online and got myself a couple of copies of it and had him autograph one for me. So he did an album cover, I did a few, but Connie Francis, I was just like, oh, that's so cool. No, it's a nice piece. It's a really nice piece.
No, it's really nice.
Yeah, it's just beautiful. And I put it up for Mother's Day, of course, I posted it on Mother's Day. That's Tony's Mother's Day post this year. So I try and do that when I can.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I can sit and look at his work for hours here. It's gorgeous.
You can see a lot of fashion illustration stuff that he did. This was just demo stuff.
Yeah.
That he did. I mean, he did professional fashion illustration, sort of his way. And like these, see the astronauts? That's the Russian cosmonaut, and he did 3 different paintings of it at just to for his students with those
Yeah,
little color swatches and everything. I mean, look
that's
at that.
amazing. That
This guy,
really
no,
is.
he spoiled his students. He makes the rest of us look bad. I told him, you make the rest of us look like slackers, you
Yeah.
son of a gun. So he gave his students his all. I mean, he really did. Yeah, that was for some gallery. It's a serigraph of some kind, silkscreen kind of thing,
Mm,
signed limited edition print. They occasionally come up for sale, but I haven't been able to nail one.
mm.
But he remembers this one.
It's very nice. I thought it was like a. Um, I mean, it does have that silk screen feel. The first one I saw from far away, I felt like it was more of a what do you call it? Not really an etching, but like that type of print, like a
Well, it is done. There's no original. The print
yeah,
is layers of color. Yeah.
yeah.
And so the original is the actual limited edition print.
Oh
So I would
wow,
like to find one. Now in the center, to the left, center, there, click on that. That's the final cover he did for Marine Corps Gazette in 1954.
wow.
It was his bye-bye to Marine Corps Gazette. And there's a little story behind it where they kept on making him change things because they go for authenticity. And there was worry that the compass he was using would be affected by anything metal. So the helmet had to come off, the knife had to come off. Then they were worried about the grenade that he's got there and the lapel there. But then they tested and found that it didn't need to be removed. And he's like, he's trying to get this painting done,
Yeah,
So he wound up tearing the sleeve and said, let me see if they complain about that. So that was, and after this, he was back in civilian life after this piece. But
wow.
he said at the time when I first showed him this piece, I mean, he knew the piece, but when I found it and showed it to him, he said that he pretty much felt like he put everything he had in this piece as far as it represented what he could do at the time. He was like 24 years old at the time when he did this piece.
Mm.
24 or 20, I'm trying to think, 20, I think 24. Let's see. This was 54. He was, let's see, maybe it's 26. He was born in 28. This is 54, so he's 26, right? I think. So he's pretty darn good.
Yeah,
So that's one of my favorite pieces by him that he did for the Marine Corps Gazette. Has a little, sort of a little bit of a Rockwell feeling to it.
it does. It does. Now that you pointed out, I see that. I'm just looking at how different, like like you said, he can really render if he needs to.
Oh
But
yeah.
and I don't know which I like better. I mean, I love the looseness and the way he captures gesture and the muscles and just anatomy that way. It's gorgeous. And then you see something, like this, and you're just, yeah. I mean, you're right. He was just all around good. Just an artist. He's an artist in a way.
Yeah,
It's
no, he is an art. I think of him as an artist.
yeah.
The title of the book is probably going to be Tony Kikino's Illustrator, Teacher, Artist, because it focuses very much on his illustration career, and then of course his teaching, and then some individual personal pieces of his as just an artist. But the artist is like the final statement because
Yeah.
that's what overall he's an artist.
Yeah.
He's a terrific artist, and he is an artist. He can draw and paint anything. He just can.
It's amazing.
It's just amazing. Yeah. And
It's amazing.
when I first met him at the shared office and saw some of his work, I thought, I never heard of this guy. So I Googled him and there in the office. I could find very little of him. Yeah, there's the story that I was telling you about.
Yeah,
I actually included that in the Instagram thing. Um, I found so little about him online. I told them you should have, like, someone should create a website. I couldn't volunteer to do it. This was back like in 2005 or something. And I did actually scan and put some of his stuff on DVD for him or CD, and no one. He knew someone who thought was going to create something for him, but just never happened. So I took it upon myself many years later, when he was now retired, to do it for him instead. And I'm glad I did. It's very fulfilling for me to go through the stuff and look at the work and learn about him. But also it's like when I first discovered Kaluta's work, and then I started buying Kaluta comics right and left all over the place.
Mm.
When I discovered Bernie Wrightson's work, the same thing. So I'm
Yeah,
one of those collectors that once you find some artist you like, you start looking, hunting everywhere for examples. And the same thing with this. This is a nice piece from the Guidepost magazine also.
yeah.
Um,
I
it's
just
so
love the speedometer that he has in there.
Oh
Like,
yeah, the montage thing. It's
yeah,
just
that is.
yeah. Well,
Wow.
he's got this one. He wants to tell a whole story and not just do a photographic capture of a scene. He wanted to like tell something, make a statement, and do storytelling by making a montage.
Yeah.
So it's
Wow.
terrific. Yeah, dynamic. He was always going for something bit dynamic, and he could do the quiet thing. He could, and just a pretty drawing. But and some of the simplest things, like those gestural drawings, could be just beautiful and lovely, just a little elegant thing. And other ones, the ones he likes the most, are the ones that are like powerful, that hit,
Yeah.
because that's he really wanted to kind of hit you between the eyes with the work. Like
Yeah.
it keeps
Look,
going
he could
down.
even do cartoony. I
Oh yeah,
mean,
no. He would tell me that he would always say, "Oh well, I always had reference. I always had reference. I always had reference." And I'm like, "Oh yeah," and I would show him this. I said, "Oh yeah, Mister. I'm not a cartoonist. What do you call this?" I actually told him I should. It wasn't this one, but it was one. It was one like this. I said, "Really? How do you explain this?" And he says, "I plead guilty." That was his answer. I plead guilty. And yeah, that quote's going to be in the book.
yeah.
I plead guilty. So he cartooned, and
Yeah.
believe me, every cartoon of his that I found in the Marine Corps Gazette, I put in there. Now, some of these pieces, like click back up, straight up, no, back
Oh,
over to the
sorry,
right,
wrong way.
yeah,
Yeah.
back over to the right, down, up,
Down.
down, down, down. One more. No, there you go. Click on that
This.
one. No, that's not the one.
Oh.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
you clicked underneath it. That one. That
This
one
one.
right there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. This is just one of these
Yeah.
pieces he did as a demo. He did various versions of it. It's a gorgeous watercolor. Look at that.
Yeah.
Very expressive, very simple, beautiful.
This is amazing.
Understated, unfinished, totally unfinished, but it's
Yeah.
gorgeous. He,
Makes
guy
me want
kills.
to throw out my computer.
The
And
guy,
just
no, the guy kills me a little. He
yeah.
really does. He go like it's totally understated. I could never leave it that way. I'd want to keep working on it, tightening it up, and. But he just like no, he did various different warm ups of it and did that, and he's like, okay, I'm done, and he just left it like that.
Yeah.
And he knows the work is good because he signed it, but he always does say he'll look at something and says, "Oh, that's good," like he's remembering these pieces as I showed them to him. Yep, there's Fu Manchu from old photo reference that he found, and he would do several versions of this in different medium. Yeah, these are some of those samurai pieces I mentioned to you.
There's this one here.
Yeah.
Wow.
And with everything, he's using different medium, expressing it differently, playing with the stuff.
Yeah.
That's you can just see all this play and all this expression going on, experimentation, keeping himself interested, and of course trying to keep the students interested. But like I said, he basically makes it's an embarrassment to everyone else.
Yeah.
Like that one's gigantic, too. Some of the pieces are small, some of them are 18 by 24. And of course, he'll just paint on newsprint like a nut. And like, no, because you know what happens with newsprint? It falls apart. And wet like that, it crinkles. And
you can see it in the photo.
Yeah, he's just doing it. You know what I mean? It's just, he grabs what's ever handy. He's got something he wants to say, especially in these pieces that are for his students, and he just goes for it. But even stuff he would just do at home that he would do and bring in a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff is done in front of the students, but he would also do stuff at home. And so he'd have several things to show people as he's doing his demos. And so he's very devoted as a teacher. Like, look, I know that I spend too much time on the stuff for my students. Oh, there you go. Go back up. Go to center. Yeah, down.
Oh, sorry.
No, that was okay, but that was also a nice piece. That's from this one here. Yeah. That is a lovely, almost like rock piece. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like gorgeous piece. Again, this is Korean era, Korean War era.
The crutches really get you,
Oh yeah, when I saw the crutches, I was like, oh, that tells the story. See the hat there, like just take your hat off. You're in church. You know what I mean? Folds it right over. Wow, it's just beautiful. What a beautiful piece. This one just knocked me out. Again, he's in his early 20s when he painted this.
Jeez. This is amazing.
Yeah, he's so good.
I mean, when you sent me these links, I looked through them, but I didn't go down a
Yeah,
lot because I wanted, like, when I knew we were going to go through this, and I wanted the actual reaction of me, you know. But man, this guy, oh,
no,
he deserves a book,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. Well,
definitely.
a few people have asked me through the like the Facebook messagings and Instagram messaging. Oh, you can click on that one. Another one. That's like a an anniversary of the Marine Corps
Yeah,
thing. That painting, which is a pretty nice big painting, is framed and hanging somewhere in Quantico. They, of course, kept all the work.
yeah.
But it's a really nice piece.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. I'm sorry,
Um,
but continue. You were saying people have
oh,
reached out to
people
you.
have contacted me and asked me, is there going to be? This is a nice little picture of him working on the painting. Of course, just
Yeah,
doing little touch-ups for the photo. Of course, I'm pretty sure it's all finished. Every artist is asked to do that. You know what I mean?
yeah.
There's young Tony Kikinos. Um, he started off, I think, as well, he started off as private and left as corporal in 2 years. Um, I only know that by the credits inside the book. It was, PFC, private first class, and then it was CPL, corporal. I was like, oh, so they gave him the rank of corporal before he headed out the door.
Yeah.
But yeah, a few people contacted me asking if there was going to be a book. And initially, I wasn't planning a book at all. I was just wanted to do this. However, while I was doing this, Dan Scheffelman, who's the chairperson at our college, she's not the previous chairperson who retired after the whole COVID thing, is the one who asked me to sort of take control of this stuff on behalf of the Kikinos family. But Dan Scheffelman saw some of the work and everything and said, maybe we can do an exhibit. And I got kind of excited about the idea. And I'm kind of obsessive as like a collector. And
Yeah,
so I went down to the gallery on the ground floor of the building that that we're in at FIT, and I took some pictures of the walls. I saw that, and by the end of the weekend, I had chronicled what would be like a one-man show that
yeah.
would pretty much tell the story of his life and of his art, with display cases with art and all the rest of it in my head. But then it turned out that, oh no, more likely to just be a little hallway thing. And I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that. That's just not worth the effort. But when I
Yeah.
was doing that, basically, I realized that I had the essence of it, because I make all these notes for myself and write down all these things. And oh, isn't this fun? It's Boris Karloff pieces that he did, really wonderful studies. I put them up, I guess, around Halloween.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm looking at his notes here. Strathmore,
Oh, he writes
John
down all
Bruce.
this stuff. Sometimes it's about the doing of the art, but more often it's about the materials he used.
Yeah,
And he underscored certain things, and it would remind him what to tell the students, and it's part of the instruction he gave. But I realized I basically had the makings of a book here.
yeah.
So, but I really didn't get a chance to work on it till this year. But, in essence, isn't that a nice spot illustration from the inside of the Marine Corps Gazette? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Wow.
Again, early 20s. That son of a gun. So good. Um, so I really didn't start working on the files for the book until this year. Like I think in March is when I started. Yep, there's cartoonist Tony
Yeah.
Kukinis, the cartoonist who says he's
Wow.
not a cartoonist.
This guy's amazing.
Yeah, but you could say first of all, and he's a very lovable guy. He's fun to talk to about. We talk about art for hours. We can talk about movies, film noir especially. Just 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 so okay, in the center there is sort of a little self-portrait that he did, which is an interesting thing. He's older than that now, of course.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite self-portrait, but it's one of his two self-portraits. I put it up, I think, on his birthday last year. um, if you click out of that and then click on the left of that piece, that, and see if you can swipe. Yeah, there you go. That's the cover. That someone contacted me through the Facebook page to say, "Is this done by Tony Kikinos?" And I saw the signature. Yes, it is. It's a paperback collector, and he sent me a nice file. But I did go online and I found a copy for myself. So I'm kind of grateful to the guy because I would never have found this book. A
Yeah.
lot of these paperbacks, even if they give credit inside the book on the back cover, how are you going to find out unless someone who's selling it or someone who's archiving paperbacks online actually puts Tony's name on it, otherwise you can't find him. He did lots of covers that I'm sure I'll never find. But this guy, yeah, I don't remember his name, but I have it somewhere. He's the one who showed me this. And again, very expressive. Look at it. It's just a wonderful, of course, he has nothing to do with the type design, but the image of the two figures together, very dramatic, stark. It's all shadows and shapes and gesture. Wonderful.
Amazing. Well, you need to let me know when this book is going to Kickstarter, because I have to get a copy of this. It is.
Oh, I'm going to be twisting the arms of every artist I know to order a copy, including my fellow teachers at FIT. But I don't expect to sell a ton of them. It's just to disseminate the work. I want people to know his work and just kind of put him on the map a little bit. Dave DeVries, who you probably met, he asked me, I don't know, when I first started doing this stuff, not first, but for about a year, I'd been posting Tony's work on Instagram and Facebook. He said, what's the mission here? What's the game plan? And I basically said, well, mission's sort of accomplished. I just wanted to archive his work and increase, his, I don't know, I want to use the word like fame, but just make people aware of his work. And before, if you Googled his name, you found, few images online, 5, 10 images online. Now you find hundreds of images online because of what I posted here and on Instagram. And yeah, that one might be in the book. I'm not sure.
I mean, it just cracks me up at how good of a cartoonist he is. When it's like, I think we've looked at 2 or 3 like cartoony images, and everything else has this realistic feel, or just very strong anatomy.
Look at this.
It's fantastic.
I think there's one more. Let's see.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, there you go. He's going back. He's coming after him.
Oh wow, this is great.
Yeah, that's as it was published right there.
Stuff.
So you can tell I've been doing this out of love and admiration for the guy and for his work, of course. But just wonderful stuff.
I love looking at like ink drawings and stuff. So this was for the
Marine Corps Gazette.
Yeah. Wow. That's gorgeous. Gorgeous.
Yeah, now scroll straight down. Click on that.
Which one?
No, in the center.
This one?
No, center.
This one.
There you go. Beautiful small study. For his students. This is one of 2 pieces. This is like cool light, like a cloudy kind of day.
Yeah.
Just a little painting demo for his students. This one will be in the book. But it may not be large. It may have to be small. If you click out of this and go to the left, there you go, that one. You'll see he did these 2 pieces showing different types of light. Very warm light, cool light. Again, he spoiled them. You're like, really.
Yeah.
I hope they appreciated, what he showed them.
Wow.
Just amazing. Yeah, this one's in the book. This one will be in the book. They're my favorites.
Yeah,
they did lots of stuff like this. Yeah. Again, from the cartoony stuff to this to and everything in between. And it kills me that that he's not really well known, but he was never. I mean, it's not that he didn't self-promote, but he just self-promoted as a guy looking for work. He didn't he never did social media or anything like that. He never owned a computer. He never did any of that stuff. So, that's all. That's from the Marine Corps Gazette. Again, a very different piece for him. Look, the style is quite different.
Yeah.
He wanted something a little more sensitive. It looks a little bit more like Egon Schiele almost. Like very simple, linear. Nothing pretty about it.
Yeah. This is gorgeous.
Yeah, more almost like a woodblock carving there.
Yeah. Wow.
He's just very experimental with this stuff. Always, just sort of challenging himself. But, sort of researching him has been quite a job.
Yeah.
Well, because there's no resume on file. College got rid of that stuff a long time ago.
Hmm.
So, and he just doesn't remember enough about it, like in that fashion. That one's a really, I love that piece. I think that
That,
one's in
yeah,
the book. I think that one's in the book. Very expressive.
yeah, yeah. Well,
That's the kind of thing he's going for. It's not like picture perfect punches like you would get in a comic book. You know what I mean? A little bit more raw and authentic.
this is just, I don't know what else to say, but gorgeous. It's beautiful. I mean, I could sit and look at this for so long and
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, he had mentioned the Marine Corps exit at one point, but it took a while before it registered in my brain to try and find the stuff. And when I started finding it, I couldn't believe what I was seeing because he's in almost every issue, and
yeah,
for that 2 year period, and just I never knew what I was gonna when I got these because I bought them from various sellers for over a period of a couple of years on eBay. And when I get one, sometimes he did covers, but he didn't do that many. He did like 7 covers, but out of 12, which is still pretty good, um, more than half. But yep, another cartoon. The
yeah,
cartoonist. There's the cartoonist.
yeah.
But I would get really surprised. I'd look at something. Is this by Tony? I'm like, and I look for credit. I'm like, yep, it's by Tony. I'm like, all right, another one. Look at that. It's fun.
Well, I have I haven't talked to him in years. I can't really call him a friend anymore. But there was a guy I knew in college who went away to England for like a semester or whatever, or a year. I forget how long he was away for. And he came back as a totally different artist because of the way they teach you in Europe as opposed to American art. And he did a lot of military illustration later on and ended up um, going into doing like etchings with it. And I feel some of Tony's cartooning reminds me of what my friend did in college when he was starting to get published um, in these things here. It's
Well, the thing is, obviously, in certain cases, a humorous approach is more appropriate than a realistic approach,
yeah,
or, more rendered, approach. But there are some pieces he did that are super tight and photographic that he would never do later on. That you would think are photos, and they're not photos.
yeah,
They are paintings. Like I think it's the third one he did is like it looks like a photo, but it's not. This is one of those wonderful, very spontaneous wash pieces that he would do.
yeah.
And I love this kind of thing because I do this kind of thing myself.
Mhm.
Not inspired by him, but afterwards, yes. But I was already doing this kind of stuff. But that's one of the reasons I love this work. I looked at this and I'm like, oh yeah, I do for this myself. I don't have
Yeah,
I don't quite have his confidence though. He's very bold,
yeah.
like fearless, basically. He's just fearless. You look at that little one with the swastika. That's also from the what is that? Look at that. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Did you say this is charcoal?
Actually, I
Pen and
probably
ink.
whatever I wrote.
Yeah, I'm looking charcoal, gouache, pen and ink.
So
That's amazing. And let me ask you a question because there was a question that came in earlier and I never got to because we just started talking about so we went off onto so many other parts of the conversation. But you've mentioned you worked with gouache, you work with watercolor, you've done acrylic,
and
um,
oil.
and oil. Okay, so uh, Mark Stokes asked Ray, "What medium do you use for your paint?" It sounds like anything.
Well, I use
That.
anything. It depends. Like if a job comes in, if
Mhm.
I can do it in watercolor, I'll do it in watercolor. It dries the fastest.
Yeah.
But if it's a large piece and the washes are going to be hard to handle, I'll go to acrylic or oil. Now, oil
Okay.
takes the longest to do,
Yeah.
and so that's a consideration. Um, so I've done a lot of acrylic lately. Part of it is because I teach acrylic at FIT,
Hmm.
and the idea of teaching it and rarely. Oh, go up a couple, right above where you're at. Go up two. One
To
more.
this one.
Yeah, click on that one. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Isn't that an amazing piece? Just wonderful. Um, Rarely do I do pen and ink because no one hires me to do pen and ink. Here and there, I've had an opportunity, and I'm usually happy to do it. Most times, it's going to be watercolor or acrylic. I like oil a lot. I don't use it too often because of the drying time. But with acrylic, I was teaching 2 courses, like a class I'm teaching on Friday, that are taught in acrylic. And I have acrylic skills, but I really wasn't using acrylic in my work. Most of my finishes weren't being done in acrylic. So I thought, well, I'm teaching acrylic. I should work in acrylic for a while, just because. Just make it that more natural if I'm going to be helping them with their paintings. So
Yeah.
lately, I've been doing mostly acrylic. The Avenger set, which came out last year, I did 5 pieces. 4 out of the 5 are acrylic. One of them I did in watercolor because it just felt like I could do it as easily or more easily in watercolor. The others were easier to handle in acrylic. So has to do with size, has to do with subject, the composition, what the various areas, how large they are. But I did a silly little piece. I think the Captain Craniac card, I think, was done in acrylic wash,
Okay.
which I liked because I was able to get a flatter surface using it, and yet when it dried fairly quickly, it was as dry as acrylic, as waterproof as acrylic. I gave it a bit more time to dry, of course. So I might do more in acrylic wash in the future.
Okay.
It's a little less goopy. I hate to use that word, goopy. I guess viscous is probably the right word, but
Mhm.
it has a flatter finish to it and less streaks. Oil and acrylic both are kind of goopy, and so you can get unwanted streaks. And oil, you can kind of spread it out and blend it more. And acrylic, you can't. It's more layers, especially if you're building things up the way I do. I don't. It's not like I don't paint alla prima. I basically, work up in layers.
Yeah.
Yep, another one of those really kind of energetic gestural pieces there by Tony.
Yeah. Yeah.
You like drawing action.
I can see, and I feel like I'm looking at like almost like an old pulp cover.
Yeah.
Like that's
Well, he wound up doing men's adventure stuff. Only a few covers, but a bunch of interiors.
okay.
Not as many as Mort Kunstler. See, that's the thing. Unlike guys like Mort Kunstler, who did a ton of that kind of thing, they did other things also. But Mort Kunstler did more. You couldn't even count how many, things he did for men's adventure magazines. And guys like Robert McGinnis, who did a gazillion paperbacks, Tony kind of moved around, basically. It depended on where the work was. Or if
Yeah.
something, all of a sudden he's doing album covers, then all of a sudden he's doing sports illustrations, then he's doing fashion illustrations. I think a lot of it was the opportunity as they came. It was a good opportunity. Boom, he did it. But it wasn't
Yeah.
like he just did one thing. Guidepost Magazine, he wasn't in every issue. No one was. But he's there along with artists like McGinnis and Kunstler and plenty of other, well-known illustrators would contribute to Guidepost Magazine.
Yeah. Look at that movement right
That was just a thing he did for the students. He did tons
there.
of these things. Modern dance, reference. And he has this thing with he likes to frame things in this sort of warm red as something that helps to show, and he goes right to edges on things, which is something I personally avoid.
Yeah.
Um, just because he wants, I think, his students to be aware of the positive and negative shapes. I'm kind of summarizing because he's kind of unspecific about explaining why. To him, it helps to describe the element and the movement. But for me, it's positive and negative space being emphasized with a midtone, basically. That's very, it has a color to it that's very
Yeah.
kind of loud. It kind of hits you. Um, you're getting down to a golf swing book, how to improve your golf swing. He did one for that, and then he did one for Hank Aaron, how to improve your baseball swing. And he just did a whole
Wow.
bunch. For this one, he did a lot of drawings, and
Yeah.
a few less for the Hank Aaron book, which I haven't posted yet. There'll be just a sampling of this in the book. There'll be a sampling of the Hank Aaron book also in the book. Um, the
We'll
most
see
of
how
the
many.
Yeah, most of the interior art, he did the cover, which he doesn't like, and he liked the interior drawings. He
So
was
this is the
happy.
one he didn't like.
Yeah, no, that's not, no, that's an interior
Oh.
drawing. The cover,
Okay.
which is the next image over, on the right.
Oh.
That one. He's not that pleased with it. So it's not going to be printed a full page. It's going to be in the book. So I give like a couple of pages to this, a couple of pages to the Hank Aaron book. He illustrated a Philip Roth collection for the Eaton Press. A lovely, beautiful, autographed by, Philip Roth book. And it's Goodbye Columbus and Other Stories. Mm-hmm. Now, go to the center and go down one. There we go. And there's Tony getting very graphic and stylized for a Robinson Crusoe cover.
Yeah.
Again, he's always interesting. His art is always interesting. He doesn't sit still, style-wise. He plays.
So good.
But because, he's like kind of all over the place, that actually, and again, he didn't do any of these niche audience cult characters. And because of that, it's kind of hard to, he wasn't concerned about building a following. He just was looking for employment as an illustrator. He was a family man. He made a living, a good living, and just followed his nose. And some clients were pretty darn good clients that paid very well. And others, like initially the stuff, the paperbacks, not this paid well, but the early paperbacks that he did paid dirt because they paid dirt to everybody. They're, they're like sleaze paper. They're not all sleaze paperbacks, but it's from that era. And they notoriously paid very little. Men's Adventure magazines paid very little. But again, they keep you busy as an artist.
Yeah.
Oh, right next to that one, the center. But yeah, that one. Click on that one. I love this one. Just love it. This is beautiful.
Stylish lady.
This is a lovely piece. I see stuff like this and I'm like, wow, why aren't I doing this? Because I'm too lazy.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's just, and it's another one on newsprint.
Yeah. Actually, no, this is on white paper, I think. Maybe.
Oh, is it?
Is it on newsprint? You'd have to read the script.
Yeah, newsprint. I was looking at it by how how the water or how the paper.
Oh yeah. Well, the gouache, sometimes it depends on the thickness of the paper.
Yeah. All the dancing here.
Yeah, keep going down. Let's see if we can get to any of his book covers. There's only I haven't posted all of them. Oh, there we go. Yeah, click on that one. That one's kind of fun. I came across that one almost by accident. I don't know how I found that one, but it's he kind of liked it. He liked the acting that's going on with the figures. It's kind of drawn more than painted, but it's still kind of neat.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm just looking.
Now, if you look at the one that's next to it on the right, yeah, that one. Look at that.
Oh wow! Yeah.
That's one of the rare cleavage ones that he's done. He didn't do any good girl art per se. Now, that's the way it's published. So it kind of gets smaller. But again, when I discovered this book, I was like, "Oh wow! I've never seen this."
And his work is just amazing. Nice. Just even looking at these here.
Now, the poster that he did, the movie poster, has a similar style to this one, where it's kind of linear and in simple color and has like a yellowish background. So it looks like the poster might have been a little bit of a rush job, like something where he wouldn't have had time to like render it out. Not that he wanted to do a lot of rendering anyway. Yeah. It's from around the same year. The poster's from 1958. I haven't scanned that yet. Finding a copy of that was tough, and the one, of course, I have has a gazillion creases and holes in it because that's what you get from a movie poster from 1958 that's a folded poster. Wow. Again, because I'm a collector-holic, I have copies of pretty much almost everything that I post.
Yeah.
I don't have original art of any of this stuff, but I have the books themselves.
Doesn't matter. I would like it anyway. Just wow, this is just really nice.
And here's one of the gazillion drawings that he do for his students.
Yeah. My God. Just anything.
Yeah, no, again, just draw anything. Look, this thing's a big, beautiful drawing in tracing paper in charcoal with some white gouache highlights. Gorgeous. On tracing paper that's, yellowed like crazy, because he didn't care. He's just drawing. On to the next piece, on to the next piece. I get it, but I'm precious with my stuff, It's like
No, I when I draw, and I do a lot of stuff that's unfinished. I just because I don't do a lot of erasing. Sometimes I'll just draw, and then I'll be like, okay, I can't. I'm not. If I erase this, I'm going to screw up the good stuff.
yeah,
So I just stop the drawing,
yeah.
and I'll bring it to tracing paper later or something else or digital. But I just tend to move on to the next drawing. I can literally before like I usually I mean I didn't realize the time, but usually by now I'm kind of sitting in bed with a sketch pad winding down for the night and just kind of doodling. I'll knock off, 10, 12 sheets of paper before
Wow.
I'm like, okay, it's time to go to bed. And that's me drawing for maybe 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just
Oh, that's fast. Yeah, that's not
yeah.
me. The closest I have to that is when I'm working, when I get a job and I'm trying to come up with the design of it, the composition of it. I'll just have scrap paper and I'll just be doodling with, usually with like a ballpoint pen or something, and just coming up with little gestures, little shapes, like what I think would make a nice picture. And that is me. I make sure there's just music on TV, no words, and I'll just
Mhm.
read what I need to draw and just kind of draw for a while to like come up with an idea. And yeah, that could be like 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Bunch of little tiny thumbnail sketches, really. And that's the closest thing that I do to what you just described.
Oh,
After that, I get very anal about it. Like, okay, now I got to figure this thing out for real. And it's got to look real. And it doesn't lose its fun completely, but it's
mhm.
not the easiest. The fun thing is coming up with the idea. That's always the
Yeah,
most fun part. Coming up with the
yeah.
idea, the composition, the notion of the whole thing. You feel a bigger sense of accomplishment when you do a finish, of course,
Mhm.
and that's what everyone wants, and that's what they're going to pay you for, and that's if someone's interested in the original, that's what they're going to be interested in.
Yeah,
But doing the initial concept sketch is the most fun. Absolutely, it's relaxed, just fun. It's just for yourself. You're just doing it until you find something you're like, okay, this will work. I think this is what I want to do,
yeah.
and that's the part that gives me the most pleasure, I think. But it's not the part anyone's paying me for. Not
Yeah,
really.
exactly. Yeah, but that's like you said, it's the fun part. So
Yeah, scroll down a bit more. There might maybe
yeah,
be one or two more pieces that would be really. Keep going down, keep going down, keep going down. I want to show you. There's like a couple of portrait things that I put up just at the beginning when I first started posting stuff of his that might be good to end off on. Um, oh, we'll do one more Marine Corps Gazette. Go back up. Go back up. Go back up. Go back up. Keep going. Okay, and then to the
the Max,
left.
this one
That
here.
one. That one. Look at that.
Oh God, just
One
I'm
of his
looking
fellow,
at the hand.
yeah, one of his fellow soldiers, also an artist named Roy Thompson, I think, posed for that. Isn't that gorgeous? As a
It is.
Christmas image for the military. Wow.
Yeah,
The
I'm
red
just looking.
letters. Wow.
For me,
It's,
what's amazing is the rendering on the hands and how
oh
I
yeah.
always have
Yeah.
trouble with the fingers crossing, over when it. My God.
It looks effortless the way he does it, right? And
Yeah,
it's like not effortless, but for him, maybe. This one knocked me out. Knocked me out.
yeah,
No color, just excellent, excellent drawing and handling of paint. Just beautiful. And again, as an image, for the military, wow,
yeah.
this gorgeous.
And that's
And
just
there's a little story behind it. Yeah.
story. But yeah, no, that is.
So let's click off that and let's go down a couple more pieces. I will let you get back to sleep one of these days.
No,
Call it a night. Let's go. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. There's always interesting stuff, but keep going.
yeah.
We'll never get there. Keep going. Keep going. Oh, go back up. 2. There we go. Click on that one.
This one.
Yep. Picture of Dorian Gray.
Yeah, it was.
One of my favorite paperback book covers by him.
That is gorgeous.
The lighting is striking. The colors. This one knocked me out.
Yeah, it's
One of my
beautiful.
favorites by him. Okay, let's keep going.
I'm, and I gotta say, I'm a big fan of the story of Dorian Gray.
Oh yeah, I read it, love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the
Oh,
movie version of it too. But that's
here
how
it
it comes.
is.
Yes.
That's nice.
Okay, keep going. Oh, okay. Go back up. Go back up. Okay, one more. Okay, in the corner there, the greenish one on the
This
there,
one?
there, that one. Yeah, that look. That's not a photograph.
Jeez.
Yeah, so he can render. It's- he took the photo himself for the reference. They basically this is what they wanted. He and the soldier was going to model for him. They went to a tank. They went over to one place that there was a tank, the photography, the whole thing, and then he painted photographically. He can do that, you know, and it has enough drama with the angles and everything and the light.
Yeah.
If that's for his taste. But you know, again, he doesn't really want to render, but when he needs to, when it calls for it, no problem. Amazing. Okay. I'll go over to the right. Yeah,
Two
that's
on the
that one. That one. Yeah, that's just a personal piece that he just did. You know, not live, you know, just from reference, but just to paint, just for fun. Broad strokes, bright colors, just really wonderful painting. I think one of his relations has this Madden frame somewhere.
It's very nice. I gotta say, that's I think a lot more artists need to do things like this, where it's just for fun. I
Well,
see a lot of
it's like a painted sketch,
yeah,
it's a finished painting, you know. But it's a
yeah,
painted sketch. It's
yeah,
just, you know,
yeah.
again, he knocks me out with stuff like this. Okay, let's scroll. Oh, there's a self portrait. Go back up to the left, center.
This one.
Yeah, that one there. Boom. I really love this self portrait.
Yeah, no, that's nice.
Just wonderful. I put this up for his birthday the first time that I started posting stuff
October
for him.
8th, huh?
Man, just beautiful.
Oh, yeah. I can't paint to save my life. I need to practice more, but I'm colorblind, so I have trouble mixing colors and
Well, that
blending.
doesn't.
I
That
could
one.
I could do I could do grays.
Well, grays are the foundation. I mean,
Yeah,
basically, you know. So
but
keep going down. There might be just one more portrait
wow.
thing that would be kind of nice to show. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's a fashion book interiors that he did. There's a whole bunch of those, like 30 something sketch. You know, keep going. Let's see. Normally, quick as that. Keep on. Stuff for students. Yeah, now it's more haphazard stuff. Keep going. Oh, go back up again. There's in the center the sort of
Sailboat?
yeah, that one. Again, a personal piece he did, just beautiful. Some family member owns this, has it not in front of him. Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah. I love
And
how
dynamic. Look how
yeah,
dynamic that is.
that sail coming in over here, the wind pushing it, like you feel it. You
Yeah,
really do.
yeah, it's just alive. It really just yeah. Wow. How he's always going for like power.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is amazing.
Okay, and let's go. Like I said, I think there's one portrait that might be worth. Well, there's a bunch of paperbacks there. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I'll be going back and looking through these here.
Yeah, but keep on down. There's one. Oh, that one there. See the blue one?
This one?
Yeah, that's a close up of a piece for the Blue Book magazine, one of the men's adventure magazines.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Oh, the guy can cook.
Yeah, I'm studying everything right now about this.
Again, but you could see why I would want more people to know who he is.
Yeah.
I became I mean, I was a fan of his work before I discovered all this stuff. And then when I just started doing research and finding this stuff online, I was like, oh my God. I mean, after I do this book project, the only thing I'll do is continue with the, social media stuff, my job will be done. You
Yeah.
know, but I won't feel satisfied till I at least get this book thing done, because I just think it's necessary. I just wish it was going to have wider distribution. It's going to have the smallest distribution on earth, basically. Me mailing out packages, which I'm hoping will be at least 50, but I don't expect. If I got 100, it'd be a miracle, copies.
Well,
but I'm sure you'll order one, and there's other people I know who will
you definitely have an order out of me. I guarantee you that, and I will do my best to help push, push your Kickstarter. And
well, people have to kind of buy it on trust. I mean, they can see the images. There'll be enough images online on Kickstarter that they can see what they'd be getting. It's just a matter, people have to want to own a book, So that's the thing of an artist that they don't know much about. But I think the work is attractive enough for crying out loud.
Well, like I said, one of the things for me to promote, and I will promote on here, and if you want to come back on and discuss the Kickstarter, I'm happy to do that. But as I mentioned, most of my fans are other artists. These are the type of books we like to collect. Okay, I mean, as you know, so I will, I mean, who doesn't, what artist doesn't have like an art of book or, or just a collection? I turned to my right here and I got 2 of the Alex Toth Genius books next to me here because I look at them so regularly and I sit in here. But I got like art of everything. I had Disney, I got gaming companies, I got just artists, specific artists that I like. I just couldn't tell you what right now.
Because I've got so many art books I can't count them, and more coming in all the time.
Yeah, I'm almost running out of room.
Oh, I ran out of room. Some things I don't take out of their boxes because I'm worried they're going to get damaged.
Yeah.
So when they come in, they stay in the box until I can find out where to put them.
I don't even draw up my drawing table too much anymore because underneath there, my boxes of comics.
Yeah.
I don't have like place to put my legs really. So
I know that's believe me, whatever you've got, I can beat it.
I'm sure.
Mine is a madness at this point.
Yeah, before I got married, I had something like 30 boxes of comics. I'm down to I think 6 now. I got rid of a lot. Wow. And a lot of it was donated. And not that I regret it because I donated it to a good cause, and the money that they raised by selling my stuff, helped out people. But now that I go back and I look at what books I gave away, I'm like, ooh, there was a couple in there I know I probably could have got a few hundred for that I didn't think about at the time I was getting rid of them, But hey, it went to stuff, and I wouldn't have had a place to live if I kept 30 boxes of comics.
Believe me, I need to get rid of stuff, but I refuse to do it like in one big chunk. I do it piece by piece, which means I'm still going to live in a crowded house the day I croak. I just know it.
Oh, don't worry. We're all like that. We're all collectors. I mean,
I've been collecting since I was 8 years old. So that's
Yeah, I'm basically the same way. I still have who is it? My original Dr. Fate figure from the Superpowers line from what was it, 86 when I was like 10 years old. I can go back and look at some of my original Transformers and Star Wars figures still. So like, we keep them. We don't get rid of this stuff. And
I have a little pad of paper from grammar school or early high school, probably grammar school, late grammar school. And in it, line paper, and in this little pad are stickers of DC Comics covers that were things that were sold for like 5 cents a pack in the grocery store. And I stuck them in there like a little book, and I still have it. I don't know how I still managed to have that, but I still have that. That's probably the oldest thing I have.
I got to say that's fantastic, though. I mean, that...
I don't know how I still have it. It's the only thing that dates back that far that I have.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And not to keep this going longer, but just the other day I was cleaning my studio, and I found a pack of postcards I got on vacation in 1983 when we went down to uh, what's the space thing in Florida?
Oh, Cape
Is that
Canaveral.
yeah? I think we went there. We stopped there. I bought a
That's pretty
pack of
cool.
postcards, and I had to say I think it's from 83 or 84 when we went. So I still have that, and I just remember I never put them up. I never framed them. I kept them in there. I'd take them out very carefully, look at the cars because I used to love to draw, space scenes in outer space and stuff.
Mm.
And they had beautiful shuttle pictures, and I'd copy them and I'd put them back in very nicely. I believe in the same order that they always came in. They may still be in the original order because I was like that anal as a kid with that stuff. And I just found it in one of my drawers. So I you know, that probably is the oldest thing I I
I
own.
think those things I mentioned to you, which date probably to the early 70s or late 60s, is the oldest thing that I can think of that I bought and kept like that. And that's pretty much by accident that I still have it, I think.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's very rare. There just wasn't that much merchandise out there beyond the actual comic books. So
Yeah.
it was a rare thing. I'm glad they still have it. But anyway, I think we can wrap it up. This is not
I
a bad
think
piece,
so
Ben,
too.
Tony. That was a powerful piece by Tony.
Yeah.
Thanks for spending all this time looking at Tony's work. Whoever wants to checking this thing out later, it'll be a great primer to his work. And I will definitely reach out to you, hopefully in about a month. I'm hoping. I know it's not going to happen right now. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think I'll be ready in 2 weeks. I think it's because school has started now and September's a
Yeah.
busy month. I think it's going to take me till October. But I do not want to run the Kickstarter until the book is a wrap, basically.
Yeah.
In fact, I actually want to have at least one printed sample before, because I want to I don't want to do a mock-up of it to show online in the Kickstarter. I want to actually have an in-hand printed sample that I know this came out well, this came out the way I want it to be. That way, when the Kickstarter thing is over, it goes right to press.
Yeah.
No one has to wait any longer than the time it takes to go to the printer and come back to me and me to go to the post office and ship it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I know the nightmares of people waiting for Kickstarter projects, and I don't want this one to be a nightmare for anybody. I want it to be they ordered a book, they have the faith in me that I'm going to get it to them, and I get it to them as soon as possible because it's done, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way to work it.
Well, say the only way I can do it. Otherwise, there's always going to be something that'll get in the way. Like if I decided to run the Kickstarter thing, and all of a sudden I'm busy with the things that I've had to deal with in August. Now I'm behind, and people have already ordered, and they're waiting. You know what I mean? I don't want to give that kind of an update. The update I want to give people on Kickstarter is, we've gotten a proof copy. I like it. We've approved it, and now they estimate the book's coming on this certain week. And then when they come in, I show them pictures. These are going to be going out this week. That kind of thing. Not like, and we're going soon. We're behind schedule. None of that nonsense, because there's just no point in it. Why speed it up? It's not there's until it's ready, it's not ready. But it is. Again, if I wasn't doing anything else, I could wrap it up in 2 weeks. I just know for example, the next 2 days I'm teaching.
Yeah.
Now the reason I'm on this late is because my class isn't until 2 in the afternoon, but I need to get there a little before noon, to go and start moving furniture around and looking for things for about 2 hours before class begins, printing some stuff out, assignment sheets and handouts and everything. So I need to be there around 11:30. But that means I have plenty of time. I've got 12 hours, well, almost 11 and a half hours, to get there.
I don't start my work day until 10 a.m. So I have my day job is 10 to 7 p.m. Our time.
Well, I purposely choose the classes in which I don't have to be up for a 9 o'clock class. I've done 8 o'clock in the morning classes. If I can avoid it, I'll do it.
Yeah, when I taught college, I actually had almost like a high school schedule. I'd work from like 8 in the morning to 3 p.m. and I didn't work Fridays, and I did that I was with the one particular school. I taught for a good 20 years in schools, but I did that particular school was 16, 17 years, And of those 17 years, I did not work on a Friday for like 6 or 7 of them.
A lot of
It
people
was
don't want to.
great.
That would have a nice long weekend. I get it.
Yeah.
The
And
reason I do Thursdays and Fridays is because I find that if I don't do teaching days next to each other, and most courses don't run because most courses run twice a week,
yeah,
and most of them do not run like Thursday and Friday or Monday and Tuesday or Wednesday and Thursday. If they did, I would pick one earlier in the week and have my Fridays free. The
yeah,
only ones that run like that next to each other is a particular couple of courses, which I am teaching in the spring and in the fall, that run on Thursday and Friday. And that way I can do all my teaching, like in person teaching, not the preps time or anything like that, or online stuff, just in those 2 days. But if I could find 2 days earlier in the week, yeah. But if I do a Monday and a Thursday or a Tuesday and a Friday, it just doesn't, it breaks up my week in a bad way where I don't get anything else done. I just have
yeah,
too many distractions. Yeah, from teaching. This way, I prep on Wednesday, go teach for 2 days, and then I kind of spend Saturday recovering, and then I can get on with my life for a few days before I
yeah.
start again.
No, it
It
makes
works for
a
me.
lot of sense.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense.
But I would like it if I have, if I had Friday off. But until there'd have to be a restructuring of things, which I don't think is happening anytime soon.
Yeah,
So I'm fine with it. No, I feel kind of lucky that I actually can do this. Most teachers I know don't have it that way,
yeah,
But the ideal thing is actually an all-day thing where you get up early, teach, and there were times where I started class at either 8 or 9:30 in the morning, 9:10 in the morning, and finished up at 9:30 at night. It was a crazy day. I was super exhausted the next day, but I got everything done in one day.
yeah,
That's lovely, exhausting, but lovely. It hasn't happened in ages, so many years ago.
yeah,
Not happening again. So, yeah,
yeah. Anyway, like you said, we should really wrap up. It's
yeah.
officially
Oh, yeah,
midnight
yeah,
here,
yeah.
so
It's midnight, so.
I
But
gotta,
3 hours longer than I expected, but still, all what we covered
yeah,
everything. So.
we did. I honestly I thought we'd go an hour, hour and a half.
I
We're
thought
what?
hour and a half, so three
Yeah,
hours. No, but we took out the time. I showed some stuff of my work, and
yeah,
we got a lot of Tony in, which is great. Thank you.
yeah. No, and thank you for sharing him and bringing him to my attention too, because I I'm very fascinated now by the work, and I will be looking at the Instagram page probably as I sketch tonight and do my wind down drawing. You know,
Well, his work inspires me. So when I put
yeah,
the stuff up, it's a daily inspiration for me. So I'm
yeah,
very happy that it inspires anyone else. I hope it inspires lots of people.
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing everything that you did. Please, like I said, keep me informed when the
Sure,
Kickstarter's coming out. If you're
absolutely.
able to, I'm happy to have you back on and we can talk about the Kickstarter more in detail.
Okay,
All
absolutely.
right. And with that, thanks everybody who watched tonight, who's watching in the future. Um, don't forget to check out the Wiz Comic every Wednesday on Instagram and Facebook. And yeah, I'll see you guys soon. All right.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Bye.